This is the Vision 79 podcast, where my friend Sander and myself, Mason, discuss recent developments in our business and our personal growth. The name Vision 79 comes from our racing numbers. Sanders is 40, mine is 39, and we have similar ambition to progress in business and personal growth. Many successful people have started small, just like us, but very few of them have documented their early years. They often say they wish they had, and given we believe in learning lessons from others, we intend to be the first to document our journey from start to finish. This is simply a documentary of our lives, and as such, we do not monetize these videos, so enjoy the ad-free content. Today, we'll discuss the differences between push motivation and pull motivation, when to utilize each, which we prefer when, and much more. But first, we start each episode with a brief update of where we're at in our business and personal lives, so when we look back on these in the future, we can kind of gauge where we're at in our journeys. So what do you have for business today?
Business today. What of drop shipping work this week? What?
Getting you back.
Yeah. A lot of drop shipping work this week. I did it like in the pause of your phrasing.
I waited.
Tried to get you. But yeah, new product seems to convert well when the people get onto the store. Like the sessions that I get onto the store from the ads, the product itself converts well. The ads aren't very compelling though, so it's hard to get people to actually click on the
And
store with.
this is the card product?
Correct. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So long story short, product converts well, but the ads suck.
Got it.
And so I'm not releasing any new ad tests tomorrow. What I'm doing is I'm taking this whole next week to really dive into other winning ads and stuff like that from the courses I've taken, as well as like deep analyze what I've done so far, to really try a slightly different angled approach on my ad creation. Because although I have been iterating and my like hook rate and hold rate and click rate has been getting better and stuff like that, it's not converting better. And so I want to take a step back. I've made somewhere over 50 ads at this point,
Right.
just for, one of these products. I want to take a step back and go, okay, like what have I done so far? Let me look back at square one and see how I'm related to that, and then kind of get together a game plan from there. So that's what this whole week is going to be. I'm just going to kind of let the ads I have right now just run, and
Well, those work, right?
yeah, they work.
The new ones?
Yeah.
Or the old ones?
Yeah, so I'm just
Right.
gonna let them run, and then I will reassess my process and stuff like that during this week, create new ads in order to launch next week.
Right.
So that's my thinking right now.
How do you feel about it? Are you bummed?
No, no. It's
Are you excited?
I think it would be silly for me to assume that within 4 months I could like capture this entire business model and just be instantaneously successful. I think that'd be like super ignorant of me.
Sure.
I think that it's not unheard of to like start having small success after this period of time, but I have been having small success, so
Yeah.
that makes sense. It also wouldn't be unheard of for me to be continuously still losing money at this point. Many people go through that. And additionally, with drop shipping, I mean, a majority of your income is made between the months of like October and December.
Gift buying season.
Yeah. Holidays and gift buying season, stuff like that. Something I want to do. It's a little bit late for Mother's Day, and I missed it on Easter because I was too busy with stuff. But I'm shooting for maybe like 4th of July, doing a special, stuff like that. I want to start planning that in like late May, early June.
Yeah.
Just kind of getting that together and stuff like that. I want to get the stuff rolling out like a month or more in advance of it, and kind of cut the promo of it probably a week and a half, 2 weeks before July 4th, because I don't want people to order under a promo under the assumption that they'll get it before July 4th.
Got it.
And with all the tariffs and the shipping and stuff like that, it's challenging to get product into the US and delivered in under 2 weeks,
Right.
or under a week and a half.
Right.
So I don't want to run a promo when people expect to get it by a certain date and then have a bunch of like callback emails,
Right.
like what the heck, right?
Right.
So I want to start that early, run that in advance. Maybe potentially I could brainstorm some ideas of how to run a holiday campaign without the guarantee of getting the product by July 4th. Like buy one during this July 4th season and receive 20% off on your next order, maybe
Right.
something like that, right?
Right.
So like there's
Well,
I'm
And,
not sure.
if you were selling July 4th themed content, like, if you were selling, like, USA hats, right? You would probably want that by July 4th, right? But if you're
Yeah.
just running a deal and a mom is shopping for toys for her kid, she might not expect to get it by July 4th because it's not themed. So you could
Yeah,
still run the deal up till then, and
that is true.
then when they see the shipping times, they'll be like, "Well, it's not, like, for a July 4th party, so it's not, like, a big deal," right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
For Christmas, that's a really great point, though, because if people get that
Yeah, for
stuff late for
Christmas, I don't
Christmas, they'll be
wanna.
furious, right?
Yeah.
But people shop, like, months in advance for Christmas. Stuff like Mother's Day or July 4th. I mean, I saw Mother's Day on my calendar 2 days ago, and I don't have anything yet.
Yeah.
So all of the shopping for Mother's Day is, like, within that week. But if I get my thing for Mother's Day late, it's a problem. But if I'm just shopping a deal on July 4th, like, last year, I went to that store and I got that linen t-shirt on July 4th as, like, a sale, but I didn't wear it to the July 4th party. I was just shopping the sales, right? So you might not even need to, like,
Yeah,
do the disclaimer or anything like that. You could run it,
that's true.
like,
That's
today.
true. I could run 2 different promos too. I could run one from, like, um, June 1st to, like, June 15th
Right.
of, like, themed to get this before you see your family for the holiday or whatever,
Right.
and then I could do one from, like, the 15th to the 4th,
Yeah.
where it's just, like, this is
Yeah.
a promo season, you know what I mean?
Lego does a sale week every week for May the 4th because it's like May the
Oh,
4th
yeah.
be with you, May the 4th be with you, right?
Yeah.
But the sale actually, like, the 4th falls on, like, a Friday or a Tuesday or whatever, right? But all the shopping is on that weekend. So it's always that first week of May. So it's like the 1st to the 6th or something like that.
Yeah.
But they know it as the May 4th promo, even though it's a whole week,
Yeah.
right?
Fair enough.
So
And Black
yeah.
Friday has extended itself into October at this
Fucking
point, so
yeah, right. And Cyber Monday and then it's the whole next week that's on sale.
cyber
Right?
year.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe don't pigeonhole yourself into just the 2 weeks before.
Yeah, that's fair enough. But just kind of thinking about those stuff passively,
Mhm.
my main concerns have been um, keeping an eye on my product prices, seeing where I can save money because of the tariff impact.
Is that impacting you?
It is to an extent, yeah.
What changed?
Everyone and their grandmother is a tariff expert on fucking TikTok. So like,
I'm asking. I don't know.
it's uh, by and large, people have absolutely no fucking clue what they're talking about.
Sure.
By and large, there are some really smart people out there who do know what they're talking about, but
Mhm.
at the end of the day, the people's misconception about it is, okay, if we charge a 25% tariff on China, that's just going to come back on the consumer because these companies aren't going to move over to the US and the consumer's going to have to pay 25% more. That's like the standard argument against it.
A lot of businesses
Long story
moving to
short.
the US.
Right? A, there are a lot of businesses that are considering moving to the US. B, it's a negotiation tactic. C, it's not going to last forever. The reason it's not going to last forever is because China's economy is dependent on our ability to pay them through our debt.
Right.
Right. And so China is what people don't realize is like, oh my God, the price of eggs went up, or the price of this went up 10 cents, or blah, blah, blah. Like your end cost change is extremely minimal in comparison to the amount of suffocation this is causing to the Chinese economy right
Yep.
now.
Yep.
And I'm seeing as a supplier, so I'm like, a smaller business, but a business that ships product out of China,
Right.
right? I am someone who, like in the eyes of everyone else would have to raise their prices by whatever margin I need in order to cover my costs, right?
Right.
I can't do that because I can only sell the product for so much, right?
Right.
So then I, as a business owner, am putting pressure on my supplier, and every other business owner is putting pressure on their supplier, and their supplier is putting pressure on the Chinese government in order to solve this issue. That's part A. Part B, the tariff tax on the shipped goods was being charged under code T11. Now I didn't look into what T11 was, but those increases are like in the 100%, 160% range. Extremely high taxation on shipping.
Got it.
My change in cost was approximately 20 to 25%.
Got
Okay.
it.
So my supplier is eating 3/4 of the tariff cost. That's A, because they know if they raise my prices by 1.5 times, I wouldn't work with them.
You're gonna go to a
They're
different supplier.
forced. That's what people don't understand is that China is forced to eat these tariff costs on the back end by and large because the companies would just refuse to work with them. And China would rather have a company work with them than no company work with them.
Right.
Right. And so people don't understand that pressure dynamic very well. Or, some people do very well. A lot of people are just freaking out. I'm not freaking out. It's going to be volatile for a little bit. Just sit back and roll with it. Like, you know, let it cook. You know what I mean? Just like chill.
What's the Kiyosaki phrase? It's like, idiots make money in, like, a bull market, but rich people make money in any market.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so it's like just let it ride, let it ride. And so they're getting charged over 100% on the shipping cost, which is, if people don't understand, shipping is a large majority of your cost when it comes to drop shipping. It's about 80% or
Right.
more. It's very high. And so when I say a large increase on shipping, I mean a large increase on the products overall, because the
Right.
majority of the cost is shipping.
That's why Amazon Prime is so nuts.
Yeah,
Right.
right. I was actually looking into the Costco business model the other day. I think Alex Ramosi was talking
Dude,
about
isn't
the
that
same
sick?
thing.
Isn't that so cool?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I saw a whole do you know the Fat Electrician on YouTube?
No.
He does a lot of great videos, but he made one on that. He's got one on Chick-fil-A and Burger King. You know, the US can put a Burger King anywhere in the world in, like, under 36 hours or something. Do you know this?
Wow,
So,
no.
when the US sets up a military camp in, like, a foreign theater, they want our troops to feel, like, at home and comfortable and ready to go to war. So, wherever they set up base camp, Burger King next day, ASAP.
Whoa.
They've got full package Burger Kings that are ready to go in boxes that they unload into a jet, offload, pop it up with staff, 36 hours. It's fucking crazy. Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
sick.
Different than the Costco model, but still cool.
That's super cool.
Yeah, yeah.
The other thing I'm looking into is that if this is going to be extended, in terms of these price changes, I do have a connection to a warehouse in the United States,
Mhm.
and you can ship goods by boat, which reduces your shipping cost by a large margin.
Right.
And then redistribute out of the warehouse
Mhm.
to kind of, greatly mitigate your
Yeah.
costs.
That's what Anna and Ralph do.
Okay.
They've
Yeah,
got
yeah.
they've got a big warehouse that they get shipments in. Sometimes they go to the Nike store and, like, fill up their truck and then drive back to the
Sure.
warehouse, but it's to save on shipping costs, right? Because they
Yeah.
can buy wholesale from the store and not pay shipping.
Right.
Right.
Right. And so that is an option. The thing is I would have to front about 3 to 4 grand a month,
Mhm.
right? And I would get that back if the product sells, but the fronting of that plus waiting 25 days for it to get to the US, and honestly, I'm not even sure if this is going to last more than a month or two. Like,
Right.
these negotiations are constantly changing, and China's economy is under immense pressure right now.
Right.
And so I don't see this continuing on for like more than 4 to 6 months, and at that point, like, I'm kind of more open to just focusing my efforts on getting better converting ads rather than like worrying about all this warehouse and backend stuff when it may prove kind of useless come the actual October buying season.
Is there a service that rents warehouse space to you, or would you have to get a warehouse and then ship the product in?
I thought about it a little bit. The thing, I didn't look into it too much. My initial concern would be is if I ship it to my own personal warehouse, I still have to ship it out of that warehouse.
Yeah, to
So,
your customers?
right, with
Then it's not drop shipping, I guess. It's
yeah,
just products
well, I could
flooding.
hire someone, but then it's like,
Yeah.
the thing that beneficial about the warehouse connection that I have is it's tied to my current supplier,
Mhm.
and so they would be in charge of the whole process. So
they
I would
warehouse.
only pay to get it shipped to the warehouse, and then
Got it.
everything
And they
distributed
have
from there would be free essentially.
got it, yeah. Now, do you own the stuff that's in the warehouse, or do you just pay the shipping cost to get it to the warehouse? You own
Well,
the
both.
you own
Pay
both.
the shipping costs to get to the warehouse,
Right.
and you actually buy the physical product too.
Got it. So then you're on the hook for any of that product that you don't sell,
Correct.
after a certain point is loss. If you can't
Correct.
sell all of it, right.
Right.
Anna and Ralph have that because 'cause they'll buy a ton of, like, a kinda shoe, and then it doesn't sell super well, and, like, maybe they make their money back or maybe they don't, but regardless of whether they, like, profit or lost, they've got fucking 500 pair of these shoes that they have to do something with, right? So they go on Whatnot, which is do you know what Whatnot is?
No.
I didn't either. It's essentially like a TikTok live stream or Instagram live stream, but you auction off items. So
Mm.
it's like quick, like 30-second, 1-minute auctions. You hit the buy, like the bid button until it stops. And then, if no one bids for more than like 10 seconds, then it sells to that person, stamp their name on it, ship it out. So
Okay.
that's how they move that extra product because you can get good deals there. And if they've already made their money back, every dollar from then on is just profit. So even if they sell it at a under MSRP, they're still making profit because they bought it wholesale,
Yeah.
right? And they've already sold enough shoes to make back the money on the order that they made.
Right. That makes sense.
So if you did end up with all that shit in the warehouse and now people like the fad is over or whatever, and you have to sell it somehow, there's other ways to move the product.
I heard this guy was talking on TikTok how he has his own shirt company. He makes
Mhm.
custom shirts. And someone asked him, and they were like, "Hey, like, what happens when you make a custom shirt and it just doesn't sell well?"
Mhm.
And he was like, "All good. I'll put it online. If it doesn't sell well, I'll take it off. I'll wait a year and I'll relist it as like previously sold out, new inventory, back in stock, hot item."
Yep.
And that mental
Vintage.
trick, and he'll sell out like every time
Yeah.
out of that shirt because
Yeah.
people are like, "Oh man, like this sold out last time," even though it didn't. He's just using his stock from a year ago.
Right.
I've heard of people doing tricks like that, and it's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Pretty interesting marketing
Dude,
techniques.
it makes you think. So the Philadelphia Eagles won the Super Bowl this year, right?
Yeah.
they had t-shirts on the second half of the game. So where were the Kansas City Chiefs 2025 Super Bowl champion shirts, right?
Yeah.
Where's the Lewis Hamilton 8th world title in Abu Dhabi 2021 t-shirts? They
Yeah.
all go to low-income countries. They sell them to those low-income countries to try to make a little bit of money back. And it's still a huge loss because
Oh, wow.
the team lost, but there are villages of people with like Lewis Hamilton 8 world title t-shirts out there.
Whoa.
Yep. Same with the Chiefs and everything else. So like every big sporting event that you can think of where like they have the shirts right afterward, the opposite reality shirts are, dude, Africa thinks that the sports world is entirely different than we do. Yeah.
They have the inverse of every single championship.
Dude, they don't know who Michael Jordan is.
Um,
Isn't that wild?
That is
like,
crazy. I wonder if there's a business model of like going to those countries and buying those shirts and then selling them as like
collectible.
factory limited collectible stock.
That's actually not a bad idea. That's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, because
Dude, there are like so many people that would kill for real bona fide Mercedes brand Lewis
like
Hamilton
authentic
yeah
title shirt from like whatever year, 2022.
2020,
right?
Yeah.
20,
That's really that would be actually pretty interesting.
like a collectible item. Like they only made 250 of these.
It shouldn't exist. This is Adolf Hitler's butt plug. This shouldn't exist type of stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a pretty interesting business model.
That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was you know, what I did to mitigate it was I got the US shipping costs down as low as I could. My margins, my wholesale still went up about 25%. Because the shipping costs went up about that.
Yeah.
And so what I did was, in case the tariffs increase for the United States, I have campaigns ready to run in replacement of my US campaigns that will go to the UK and New Zealand instead.
Got it.
And so if it goes up too high and it just doesn't make sense anymore, I can immediately switch over to different countries seamlessly. So that I don't, lose money in the middle while I'm screwing around.
So the tariffs went through. Your supplier said, "Hey, Sander, the tariffs are whatever 120%. I'm only giving you 20% of that, so I'm eating 100% effectively."
Sure, yeah.
So you get a 20% increase on your shipping. Do you pass all of that onto your buyers, or do you eat that and keep your shipping prices the same?
I'm eating it right now.
Got it. So your numbers on the website are the same, even though you're earning less per sale.
Yeah, because it's what I can do is I can A/B test pricing, which is when you run two different prices essentially, and you split the link that you have linked to your ad onto two different sites and see what converts better or how your conversion is affected.
You talked about that last week.
Yeah, so I can do something like that to see, but for now I'm just eating the cost and focusing on my ads. So, and I think that's what a vast majority of businesses are doing, because I think a vast majority of people in this business sector really do see like the back end of things more than like your everyday Joe Schmo on TikTok, and they realize that like this cannot last forever. And also a lot of companies, like, what people don't realize is like I think that companies are pictured as like these number monsters, right? And it's like these companies 110% realize that they're selling to people. Like every single business realizes that they sell to people, and they realize that they can't just like throw shit around and like raise prices arbitrarily, and just like you can't just crunch numbers like that and immediately offload it onto the customer. Like there's this perspective that companies are just going to like treat everyone like a physical number that they buy stuff from their company with, right? And that's just not really true when it comes to practice. Like there are companies that I know about through like my courses and stuff like that, and many of those companies are multi-million-dollar companies, and they'll still call up customers physically and be like, "Hey, I saw that you put the X, Y, and Z order in. What intrigued you about the product?" Well, like these are like multi-million-dollar companies that are physically spending time calling up customers, and so like I don't think people really realize that when they look at like these big companies. They're like, "Oh, the bad guy up there," right? And so as business owners and as people working with suppliers in China, like everyone is trying to work out a solution to this. The Chinese economy is under a pressure cooker because of these tariffs, and that's a good thing because we can create a resolution there. And like this is a little bit of pain for long-term gain. Like it's just ride it out. Is what I would say to people wondering who are watching. But overall, my upsell and aftersell stuff for the new tablet products is working well. I'm doing that more detailed approach to the ads, and man, I thought there was one more thing. Oh, I got the new images done for the gramophone products.
Cool.
I put those up there. I'm just gonna let them run for this week and see how they convert. If I see the conversion rate is way lower,
Right.
that's part of the reason I'm not raising prices right now too, is because I'm testing new
Right.
images. It's really hard to test new images over an A/B test.
Mhm.
You have to create two completely separate product pages,
Right.
and it gets a little bit it gets a little bit complicated. And so my mentor was like, just run the images for a week, see how they do. If they do worse, you can go back to the drawing board, whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna see kind of how it does and write it out from there.
Mhm.
But that was about most of my week this week, was just kind of coordinating a few things, digging in the ads. I set up that whiteboard.
Right.
I sent you a photo of in my
And
work
all your
study room.
I saw all the pages that were pinned on your.
Yeah, so I have a stool I stand on when I'm working on the whiteboard,
Uh-huh.
and so I read my pages and, like, look to the whiteboard, and I create little, like, story maps. Like, I got a couple
Gotcha.
going right now on the whiteboard and whatever. So I'm just doing that. I find that at first I kind of, for a long time, I avoided moving it over because I thought it would be kind of a waste of time, because I would just
Whiteboard?
because I can do a lot of stuff on my laptop, and, like,
Yeah.
digital is better than handwriting at the end of the day, because it's more versatile and you can move it around. But I realized that I think more clearly when I write through stuff. Like, I still use a notebook for a lot of my writing through stuff,
Yeah.
when I could just type it on a notes app on my laptop. And so I was like, no, I'll move it over and see how I like it. And so right now what I'm doing is, it's a little bit more time consuming, but I'll draft up ideas based on my sheets on the whiteboard. Then I'll copy them into a small sheet on my laptop,
Mhm.
and then kind of have ChatGPT reflect on that.
Mhm.
And then I'll write my storyboard up on the whiteboard again, because I realize that when I'm writing by hand, I connect dots much better.
Oh,
And
interesting.
so, like, I just, like, I seem to think a little bit more cleanly
Hmm.
when I'm writing physically.
Right.
And so I'll put the storyboard up on the whiteboard, and then I'll realize a bunch of spots where I could add stuff, and I'll connect dots.
Mhm.
And then I'll go put it in my brief plan for my ad set that I'm going to launch.
Mhm.
And then I'll create those ads.
Gotcha.
So it's a little bit more convoluted back and forth, but I'm kind of using the whiteboard and the physical sheets as like a crux for, or a crutch, because it makes my thinking process a little bit easier.
Yeah.
And so it is slightly more time consuming for sure, but I'm hoping that the potential will be higher quality end product.
If it works, it works.
Yeah, so that's just what I'm thinking about. Um, but yeah, overall good week, and just busy with business stuff.
Have you seen those kids on YouTube that do toy reviews that go fucking wild? Are you familiar with these kids?
I've probably seen them before. I've seen a lot of toy review videos.
There was this kid that blew up in like maybe 2014 or 2015, who it was just a kid who did toy reviews. He
Mm.
talked about what he liked or not. And
I've
like
seen this, yeah.
Toys R Us flipped their shit because what this kid said was prophecy. If he liked the toy, kids bought that toy. Toys R Us would do everything they could to get that toy in the stores, right? Ultimately, it wasn't enough to save Toys R Us, but I digress. Amazon killed Toys R
Rip
Us.
Toys R Us.
But there are other kids like that on YouTube right now. I'm wondering if you could offer to send your product to them with like a chunk of change or something. I don't know, and then ask the kid to review it.
It's actually an interesting point you bring up, because I totally neglected to bring this up, but I am actively hiring creators for the new product.
Yeah.
And so what I did was, I totally forgot I did this. This was like 4 hours of work, and I totally forgot.
4 hours in an entire week can get disappeared real fast.
Definitely can. I feel that. Um, I I reached out to the creators for the gramophone that did a really good job, and I said, "Hey, uh, awesome work on the gramophone product. I got a new product. What can you do in terms of content for this?" And so I worked out deal. I sent, I think, 10 emails. 4 people got back to me
Mhm.
in the last few days, and so I've sent them products accordingly, and I'll be paying them through PayPal. And then on top of that, I've launched in Incense, which is kind of the creator hiring program I use.
Mhm.
I've launched a product seeding campaign, which is essentially when you send them the product for free, they give you content for free. It's a free exchange.
Got it.
And so I pay for that platform. So although I was like, oh, I don't have to use it if I don't want to, I was like, you know what? Product seeding is completely free for me to launch.
Right.
All I do is pay for the products. I don't have to pay for creators. I'm just going to launch a campaign in the background. It'll only take me a couple hours to set up. It's worth it.
Right.
So I launched that campaign. It's under moderation right now until I think Monday, because they don't review over the weekend.
Yeah.
And so that'll launch hopefully tomorrow. And then on top of that, I got multiple DMs because I started launching organic content. I think last week I said I created a bunch of organic content.
Yeah.
Scheduled it. That has started launching.
Those are ads that
already.
you make yourself.
Correct. Yeah. Well, all of them I do, but this is kind of like
You You film it yourself.
The organic content is actually just posts right now. So I have a TikTok. I created a TikTok as well, but I haven't posted anything on it yet. I just created it. The organic content that I'm referring to is through Meta, like scheduling posts like we do for the podcast.
Right.
So
But they're photos that you took and edited yourself.
correct. Yeah.
Organic meaning you were hands-on with the product. It's not using a photo someone else took.
That is correct. Yeah. And so I posted those up, and I got a couple different creators who contacted me who are brand new, and they were both like kid creators in Australia.
That's perfect.
And they were like, hey, like, we love your product. This is what you do. Can we like do an exchange? And so I sent those two people free product and a brief.
Yeah.
And they're going to get content back to me. And then the nice thing about that kind of exchange is that they posted on their own social media as well.
Yep.
There was one creator I worked with who did a really nice job posting and like kind of blowing up the product on their own side of things, and I did see an increase in sales the coming days after they did that.
Yeah.
And so I'm hopeful and anticipating that maybe the two other kind of kid creators that I sent products to can do something similar and help me out in that respect. So working with creators on the back end for the tablet products. I've had a lot of fun digging into the winning ads that I have available to me from like the courses and stuff like that, and seeing why they work. There's a lot of different niches and fields, but what I'm doing is kind of pulling those niches in and going, okay, this, for example, I spent about an hour and a half, 2 hours already digesting. There's 57 different winning ads that I have access to that were like multi-million-dollar ads from a whole variety of different companies. I am only
like, these are not the ads that you made.
Correct,
You've made 50, but you have access to 57 ones you know work.
Correct. Yeah, I've made 50 that have largely done about the same, and none of them are really blown up.
Got it.
I have access to 57 from a variety of different companies that have blown up, and I know that they're good.
Different products or all the same?
Completely different products, different companies, whole variety.
Red
and
Bull
it's
gives you wings.
What?
Red Bull gives you wings.
Right. That kind of, it's everything in between.
Right.
You know,
Right.
It could be like dog chew toys to like Red Bull gives you wings.
Right.
And anything in between. But they're all multi-million-dollar ads. So I've been going through and really digesting how does this ad work and why. And so, for example, this morning, and a little bit last night, I spent like an hour and a half, 2 hours digesting a ad for a phone case. And it started off and I was like, this isn't just a phone case. This is a 30-cent child working in a sweatshop, creating microplastics that pollute the ocean. And then it goes through this like chain of events.
Oh, wait, this is the commercial.
Right. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
So it's going through this chain of events where it like starts with like, you think essentially the theming is you think this is just a phone case, but look at all these negative ramifications. Right. And then it's like you feel as though you can't do anything about it, but there is something simple that you can do to keep your convenience and ease of use. And then it goes into this different style phone case that's biodegradable and whatever, and they have really good images and like really good video compilation.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, this is a very different niche from what I work with.
Right.
But this ad is intriguing to me. And so I broke it down. I was like, why is it intriguing? And I was like, okay, what I could try to do is take a traditional iPad and go, you think this is helping your child, but it's really leading to X, Y, and Z, attention deficiency, lack of bonding with parents, blah, blah, blah. Right. Yeah. Stuff like go through those things, right? Add in clips, images, and then kind of transition to it into a solution-based format, right?
Yeah.
Broadly speaking, I haven't done the exact storyboard yet of how I want to run it. I don't know if it'll work or not, but there's multiple different ads that all have a different theme. Yeah. And I'm trying to break them down and see how can I apply it to my product.
Yeah.
And so it's a relatively lengthy process, which is why I'm skipping on launching ads tomorrow. It's because I want to take this whole week to really get into a groove of how I analyze and how I break this stuff down.
Right.
I feel as though if I take a week, if I just let my ads run, if I skip a week to put out new content, I can really focus on the research and kind of creation side of things.
Right.
And then work from there later on once I get my flow and my system down. So that's what this coming week is going to be about. But I've had a lot of fun digging into that stuff and kind of going through it. So
and I'm thinking of my favorite ads. Did I send you the gecko ad this morning?
Maybe. I don't think I've watched any TikTok this morning. So I probably haven't seen it.
Got it. So the ad starts with like a gecko. It's like a shitty 3D graphic of a gecko. And like there's another gecko running toward it and they embrace and they hug each other. And then a crack rips through the earth between them, and then one of them falls, and they're like, no, and they grab each other's hands, and it slips, and the gecko falls, and then it shows like a wide shot of like a group of bros like playing chess, and a gecko falls and dies on the chessboard, and they're like, what the fuck? And they look up, and there's the other gecko like screaming, and they're like, oh my god, dude, that was his lover. And then they're like, don't do it, don't jump, it's not worth it, like you'll find another. And he jumps down and kills himself, and all the bros start fighting each other. They're like, why didn't you get whatever, like Jimmy's drywall? And then it's like, Jimmy's drywall never cracks. And then it like it shows like a 3D graphic of like the wall being repaired, and it's stamped by like Jimmy's drywall. And then they're all like, thank god this will never happen again. Or dude, it was such a fucking funny ad.
Yeah.
I think it was in a different language, but I don't know, it was a good one, dude. It was creative.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm looking at doing stuff like that. What I've realized from the winning ads, which is really interesting, is a lot of the winning ads focus on compelling a certain emotion in the audience, in the end user, but they really don't display the product very much. And so that was really interesting to me. It's like, okay, I can pull a lot of footage from online for free, right? TikTok content is essentially open source.
Have you ever seen an AG1 ad, Athletic Greens? You see the product less than 5% of the entire ad. Most of the ad is like Costa Rica, Friends Hula Hoop.
Exactly.
Like,
or
fucking-
Red Bull. Yeah, we mentioned that earlier.
Yeah, they're fucking, like the brand is on the helmet, but it's like, dude, skydiving, like whatever.
Yeah, it really focuses on the emotion, and there's a lot of stock footage used in order to convey that emotion. And then the product is kind of implied to be a solution to this problem. Right. And so I thought that was a really interesting twist versus like what I'd been focusing on was just like
The product.
getting the best product content, but I wasn't focused on creating the best ad.
Right.
I was to an extent, but not concretely. And so I'm really trying to recenter myself and look at it through a different lens and see how I can take a different approach.
Right.
And so that's what I'm working with right now and trying to understand that a little better. But I you know, it's definitely a very lengthy process. There are times where like I fucking hate this. But overall I do find it enjoyable and I find it creative, which I like.
Right.
And it's relatively fun at the end of the day. It gives like you like a new set of like potential and options, which is kind of fun. You know, you don't ever feel like you're hitting a wall because you have more stuff to do than you could possibly get done in a day, right? So I always feel like I'm getting through something or making a little progress here and there or whatever.
And you know that when you do one right, then you get paid for it. So it's like, oh, when I hit the right one, when I, you know, when the 3 cherries pop up on the slot machine, I get a payout, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, it's creative.
I'll actually bring that up later in our podcast as well.
Slot machines?
No, that kind of like reward idea.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much my business update, I think.
Sweet, dude.
Yeah. What do you
Sounds
got?
like a productive week. I have a lot.
It was productive.
I have a lot like I usually do. It's not treasure hunting, again, sadly, but it's for a good reason. So, last week I mentioned that we almost lost a client.
Yeah.
Because we had been doing showings, and then he was like, I might just buy my house for my dad, and we're not going to need an agent. We were like, well, you know, it's good to have an agent anyways, but if you want to do that, that's totally fine. And then I suggested, I was like, you know, we can keep looking at showings. I don't mind looking at showings for 6 months and going through the inspection period for 5 different houses. And then ultimately none of them work out and you end up buying your house from your dad and you don't use a real estate agent anyways. I'm fine with that. Like, I just want you to make sure that you're getting the exact option that you want. And he was like, okay. So we went and looked at a house. He really liked it. And so we wrote up an offer, submitted it. We got a counter offer, and then we ended up accepting it. Right. And so from then on, the inspection period starts. Standard inspection period is like 7 to 14 days, right? We had asked for 10. The counter offer was for 7. So we had exactly 7 days, right? And fortunately, we were able to get an inspector out on day 2. And he brought 2 other inspectors with him. I think I went over this last week, right? So it's Sunday of the next week, meaning that the inspection period is over, right? So here's the summary of how that went. We got the house inspected, and there were a few minor issues that were stopping insurance. There weren't anything like super major. There wasn't anything super major. Most of it was minor stuff, but there were a lot of minor things because the house is a fixer-upper, right? And it's priced as a fixer-upper. I'm not going to give like specific details or anything just because, you know, you're not supposed to in real estate, and I don't want to like dox anybody, right?
Sure.
But just generally speaking, house is in a good area, but it needs some fixing up, right? And in my opinion, and from the CMA that we pulled, it's priced appropriately. But our buyer said, you know, hey, there are a lot of things that need fixing. I would like a reduction in price. And usually you only reduce the price if there's things that like should actually be fixed. So here's a great example. The few minor things that are stopping insurance, Our offer is a finance offer, meaning our buyer is going to get a mortgage on the house. So he's borrowing money from the bank to pay for the house. So by the sellers accepting our offer, they're accepting that if there's a problem that stops us from getting insurance, the bank will see that we can't get insurance and the bank won't approve our loan. So we can't actually buy the house. So by accepting a finance offer, instead of listing the house as cash only, so just give me a check for the entire value of the house, right? They're agreeing to kind of fix that insurance stuff, right? They always have the option of saying, no, we don't do that. We didn't recognize that's what was happening. And so we're just going to wait for the inspection period to expire. You'll probably back out and then we'll go with a different buyer or we'll relist it as cash only, right?
Yeah.
And so we advised our buyer and said, hey, we can ask for these insurance things. And if we can get specific quotes for a few other issues, we can maybe ask for like a small credit, right? And our buyer, was receptive to that, but they thought that there was enough needed. The fixer upper wasn't exactly a fixer upper. They felt that the house needed more work than a standard fixer upper would. So they proposed that we get all of the inspection things covered and then a huge credit at closing, like over 10% the value of the house, which is a lot. It's a lot to negotiate after you're already in the inspection period,
Yeah,
especially if there's nothing major. If there's like a cracked foundation or like the roof is super fucked and it's a big roof or like there's a sinkhole under the house, like a big thing, that's when you need to renegotiate. But a lot of these things were like, oh, like the AC is nearing the end of its service life, or like there's a small crack in the driveway and things like that, right? Like stuff where it's like, well, you'll probably have to pay for that down the road, but it's not an issue right now. And it's of no fault of the seller. It's not like they've improperly maintained it, right?
Yeah.
Um, and one of the lessons that I learned is that as a real estate agent, it's not really up to me to make the decisions. It's up to me to advise my client and then do exactly what they ask, right? That's what a transaction broker is I'm just going to do what you tell me, right? So I'll give you my advice, but whatever you decide to do, that's the way that we're going, right? And so that's what we did. So we submitted this request to the sellers to say, hey, here's our inspection report. That took days. Like getting all of the different inspectors out and then getting different inspectors out to give us quotes on how much they think it's going to cost to fix these specific items and then organizing it all in an Excel sheet. This was days of like nonstop phone calls and like high pressure. And generally speaking, if you ask a seller for a set amount of money, like I can't ask you to come fix my, like, let's just say with your duplex, like a garage door, right? You can't just say, hey, Mason, when I buy your duplex and the garage door is broken, I want you to give me 10 grand to fix it because that's a ballpark. And like, I can get that fixed for cheaper, right? So we want quotes to be attached to everything, right? And the plumbing people that we worked with, I'll say their name, Drain Mechanics, they fucking sucked ass. They showed up on day one when we wanted them to. They gave us, they filmed everything. They like sent a tube down the pipes and stuff, and they filmed everything. And then nothing, right? Radio silence for like 4 days. And every day that we called, they were like, oh yeah, we're processing the video. It's going to take a little while. We can write you a report in the meantime. And we were like, okay, maybe we can take that to somebody and get a quote because they won't do a quote until the video is processed. So we did that. And their report was like a paragraph. It was not very long and not very detailed. And every plumber that we sent it to was like, I don't fucking know what this is. I need a video, right?
Yeah.
Video took like, it was day 5 of the inspection period and we still didn't have it back.
Oh.
And so ultimately, when we made this request of the sellers, we were like, hey, we don't have an exact quote for this, but we have a ballpark. And it's going to be like roughly X amount of money. And they said, hey, at first they were unwilling to hear any of it. They were like, I don't want to do the insurance stuff. I don't want to credit you a closing.
Yeah.
Like, fuck off. We're not doing whatever. But the listing agent, oh my God, bless you.
Nope.
Say oh God.
Damn. My bad.
Dude, I learned the other day that if you try to stifle a sneeze, if you have an aneurysm, it can pop and you'll die. Did you know that?
Haven't died yet.
All right.
I didn't know that.
Sneezing. Keep sneezing.
I'll try.
Alinka told me that she sneezes like 15 times a day. I sneeze like once a week, if that.
I probably sneeze like once every other day or something.
You think so?
Probably. But I have like pollen allergies and shit too.
That's true. She doesn't think she's allergic to anything. I think she's wrong. Anyways, so the listing agent did a really great job expressing to his clients like, hey, we kind of agreed to fix these insurance things. If you want to just wait out the inspection period and list it for cash, we can do that. But this is my advice. So they agreed to fix the inspection things. All in all, the inspection stuff wasn't cheap and the stuff that they're replacing is useful. So that's a win. But they said, we're not going to give you a reduction on price at all. So we were looking at like a 30% reduction in price and the insurance things fixed. And now we're just looking at fixing the insurance things, no 30% reduction in price. So bringing that back to our buyer, I was like, listen, There are a few strategies that we still have in our pocket. I don't think it's totally out of left field to ask for a reduction in price or credit at closing. And the only difference there is that when you buy a house, you're paying for the down payment, like the actual cash that is traded hands at the closing table is the down payment in cash, and then closing costs, which is you pay state taxes and stuff like that to like title insurance and like getting your deed documented with the state or whatever. Closing costs usually total up to like it can be like $10,000, right? So if you do get a credit at closing, as long as it's less than that $10,000 or even more, honestly, if your lender is cool, then you can take that out of your down payment too. And so we said, hey, we can ask for a credit at closing. It just can't be 30% of the listing price of the house because that's kind of crazy. And they were amenable to that. And they were like, okay, let's knock it down a bit. And so we cut it down like in half-ish. And so we sent that back to the sellers. And the sellers were like, no, we're not going to do like any more. Like, what are you talking about? Like, we're already fixing the insurance stuff. We're not doing anything else. And so that's when Grace and I kind of had a no shit moment because this is her deal, right? I'm a licensed agent, but I'm not working with a brokerage, so this isn't my client and this isn't my dealio. I'm kind of job shadowing Grace, for lack of a better term. But we kind of had a sticking point where it's like, okay, if our buyer is unwilling to accept this house without a reduction in price or credit at closing, and the seller is unwilling to sell it to us without giving us anything or with giving us anything, right? What the fuck do we do? Like, are we at a stalemate? Are we really going to lose this deal over like this amount of money? Because it's not a huge amount of money at this point, right? So what's the deal? And I was listening to it was Gunther Steiner on an F1 podcast. And he was like, they say in business, you know that you made a good deal if everybody's a little unhappy, right? Because last week, Max Verstappen got a 5-second time penalty. And Red Bull was annoyed because they didn't think he deserved a penalty at all. McLaren was annoyed because they thought he should have gotten a 10-second penalty, not 5. And so Gunther Steiner was saying the FIA probably made a good call if everyone's a little annoyed, right? And so I was like, I think this is what we're going to have to look for. Like, no one's going to get exactly what they want, but everyone's going to walk away partially happy, right? But like, how do we actually make that happen? And so Grace and I kind of laid out the options that we had. And I was like, okay, let's talk to our buyer one more time and like get the go ahead to make this phone call. And then we'll make the phone call and make it happen. And she was like, okay. And so we talked to our buyer. We got him to come down a little bit more on the thing and relook at their finances to verify whether or not they can actually afford this house with or without that reduction in price at closing. And we got on the phone with the listing agent. We were like, hey, this is what we're looking for, right? We still want this credit at closing. We're appreciative of all the insurance fixes, but we would like to ask for this credit at closing. And he was like, my sellers just flat out won't do it. And we were like, okay, we're kind of reaching a sticking point here. We came up in price on our initial offer. We paid to get all these inspections done and stuff. We listed out all these quotes. We chased all these people down, sign of good faith. Would you please just get on the phone with them and like try to talk to them into giving us something? And he was like, I'll see. And so he got on the phone and he got them to give us half of what we asked for on the phone. Well, no, it was less than half. He eventually got them to give something at closing, right? And our buyer accepted. Okay. So we signed the addendum,
nice.
Ended the inspection period, put the last bit of money in escrow. So like we're locked in now. Our buyer cannot back out without losing their escrow. They can't back out at all. So this sale is going to happen. So now all we're waiting on is to secure financing, to get the insurance fixes done, and then we close probably in like the middle of May. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So I'm super stoked.
Do you have any idea of like what the payout is like?
It'll be about $5,000.
Okay.
After giving cuts to the broker and everything.
Is that after taxes or
before taxes? But since we're contractors, we get the money without taxes taken out. So
you get it 1099.
Yeah. So we don't have to pay that tax until next year.
Correct.
So it'll be $5,000. And this means now that I can go interview with brokerages. And Tyler made a really great point. I think I talked about this last week, which is I can go to a brokerage and say, hey, I've been working with my girlfriend who's a real estate agent. I found her this client. This is my lead. And I've been job shadowing her this whole time. I'm about to bring half of this commission to your brokerage if you'll sign with me. But and now I can negotiate for either a higher split, because like Grace at Remax right now, she can't afford to pay the $12,000 a year that they want to give you like the 90% split. She's at a 70% split. So 30% of every sale goes to the brokerage, right? So I can either say I want 80% split because I'm bringing you business, or I want you to pay my one-time $2,000 NAR dues, right? So the wiser decision would be to renegotiate a split, but it kind of depends on the brokerage, right? So This upcoming week, I'm going to interview with Blue Marlin and Remax or Grace
Cool.
Works. And then whoever I like more, I'm going to go with that. Trying to think about what I want to say on camera. I have a predisposition for each, and I have expectations for each, but I can't actually make a decision until I get down in the negotiating seat with either of the
Yeah.
companies, right?
Yeah.
So we'll see how it goes. But I'm excited. I'm glad that we locked this in. And on top of that, my parents know somebody who is getting ready to sell their house as well. So we had a listing appointment last week that went pretty well. We spoke with another associate from that party of people, and we locked in a meeting for this next Saturday where we're going to present a CMA and like actual analysis of what we think we can list the house for and what our advertisement strategy
Mm.
looks like. So it looks like we're locking in our first listing as well, which is sick.
Cool. Very nice.
Yeah. And they want to move out of state. So I'm sorry, they want to move out of the city. So they want to move down to a different county where we can't get on the MLS. So we can help them sell their house here, but we can't help them buy a house somewhere else. But we can give this referral to an agent down there and then get a percentage on wherever they end up buying down there. Additionally, we know someone in another state who might be interested in buying this house. And if that's the case, we can double end the deal and get twice the percentage commission as we normally would.
Yeah.
So that's cool too. And I had this interesting epiphany. Do you know who James Sexton is, the divorce lawyer? Have you seen him on TikTok?
I think I've heard the name before. Yeah.
I saw him on TikTok. This I haven't actually gotten the chance to speak to the listing agent for this deal that we're in the closing of. I've read his emails and his texts and stuff like that with Grace that she shared with me and the client. But I haven't actually been on the phone with him or whatever because again, I'm not an agent. I'm not an agent on this deal, right? But in terms of the negotiating that was going on, I was like, man, this guy's being kind of like an asshole. Like he's kind of asking for stuff that he doesn't really be needing to. It's just kind of brutish and like, you know, it's a little bit of a machismo like negotiating strategy,
Mm.
right? It's not like nitpicky. It's just kind of like entitled. Like, oh, we have other buyers that might be interested. So like, go our way or we're gonna go with someone else. And I was like, man, seems kind of like a dick. But I was watching this James Sexton video the other day where he was talking about like what is the saddest experience that you've had in being a lawyer. And he said that there was this case where he was representing this pimp, and he was getting sued by the mother of his child, one of his victims, basically, right? And the only piece of evidence that she had against him, like their biggest piece of evidence, was this photo of her face that was like super beat to shit and like bloody and battered, right? And it was a key piece of evidence that probably would have won him the case. But when you put something into evidence, you have to say a particular phrase. It's like 3 sentences, and then the judge grants it and it gets put into evidence, right? And her lawyer was a public defender because she didn't have the money to actually buy a good lawyer. And that lawyer didn't know the phrase. They only said one of the 3 sentences to try to put it into evidence. And then when she asked like an examination, she was like, do you recognize this photo? And she was like, yeah. And then James Sexton said that he did his job and he stood up and he said, objection, other lawyers asking questions about something that's not in evidence. And so the woman said, oh, sorry, she didn't really understand what was going on because she thought she did the right phrase, but she wasn't certain. So then she asked, and she was like, do you know the woman in the photo? And then he said he did his job, and he said objection, asking about something not in evidence. And the judge was just impatient that day. And so he was like, all right, let's move it along. Let's go to the next thing, right? And she ended up losing that case because she couldn't afford a better lawyer.
Wow.
And
That's wild.
he was really hurt by that because he had to do his job, which was to defend his client to the best of his ability as a lawyer.
Yeah.
And he's not proud of it, and it's not a moral thing to do, but it's his job, right?
Yeah. I don't think I could be a lawyer just because of
Me
that.
neither. But I had
I just couldn't do it.
it was eye-opening because I was like, oh, this other agent isn't being a dick. He's doing his job. Like his job is to get his clients as much money for that house as possible,
Mhm.
right? And it's our job to get our client as much money too. So I shouldn't feel bad about asking for what we're asking for. All I need to do is rationalize it and then push on him. And ultimately, by having that realization and then, saying to our buyer, hey, I actually do think that you are owed this money or that it would be fair for you to receive this money. So we're going to go request for that and push and push and push, right?
Yeah.
And that final ask that we made, he insinuated, he was like, my clients Like, the house was only on the market for a few days. So he was like, "My clients, it wasn't being advertised for very long. They know somebody who is willing to buy it for all cash and without asking these questions and stuff. So if you push too hard," this was the insinuation, "if you continue to ask for stuff, we're just gonna stop responding, rescind our offer to pay for the insurance stuff, and we're just gonna put it back on the market and sell it to somebody who'll do all cash without asking these questions." And so it was risky for us to ask again for more, or not for more, but like I guess it was for more because they had only agreed to do the insurance stuff. Um, it was risky. They could have just said like
Yeah.
nothing and let it expire. But we pushed and then we got it. So I'm happy to have learned that lesson. And it was a little eye opening because now I don't hate the guy personally. You know, I'm quick to hate people personally.
Yeah, you also gotta be mindful of, what people tell you is the case versus what is the actual case.
Right.
Because there's, there's I deal with customers every week who will send me emails of, like, saying, uh, "My business is a scam. I'm gonna report you to the police, blah, 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 blah. I never received my order." And then I look them up and their email's not registered under my clients. Their name is not registered. Their address is not registered. They never purchased anything. The bank statement they sent me is completely unrelated to my business. It's the wrong price to be any of my products.
Yep.
And I'm like, you are fishing to try and get money out of me. Even
Yep.
if I wanted to reimburse you, I have no way to reimburse you because I don't even have your credit card information. You never ordered from me.
Right.
And so, at first that kind of stuff freaked me out and I thought I was like doing something wrong. And I was like, oh man, like maybe this person did order and there like something screwed up
Right.
in the system or whatever.
Right.
But at a certain point I realized I was like, if this person's name and email address are not in the system,
Mhm.
and then on top of that, they tell me they didn't receive an email confirmation, which I know they did because it's an automated system. I
Yeah.
know they did. And then on top of that, they send me a bank statement that does not reflect any of the prices or even close to the prices that I've charged for different products on my store. Like,
Yeah.
this person is scamming me, and they're
Yep.
probably scamming 20 other people.
Yep.
Right. And so it's like, it's a sad reality, but there's many people who will lie their way into trying to get money back.
Yeah.
You know?
It's you gotta figure out when they're bluffing and then call it properly, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think that this guy was bluffing in this case because the house was listed for a short period of time, and then when we submitted our first offer, another offer was already being considered.
Yeah.
So, like, we knew there was activity, and, like, my perception and my perceived value of the house is that it's being sold for a good price, right? And when you're an agent, I was talking to Tyler about a couple of these things because I was like, "Hey, dude, what do I do here?" Because like, I'm afraid if we push too hard, they're just going to stop responding, and then we're going to lose this opportunity for our buyer. And it's a cool house. Our buyer loves this house. He just wants it for the right deal. I'm afraid if we push too hard, we'll lose it. And he was like, "You have two options, right? You can either try to work your buyer and get them to accept that it's a good deal and just to not cause issues, or you can work the seller and try to give them money." Right. So then you have to figure out, like, is your buyer going to be upset with you if you work them? And do they think they're going to try to like, are you selling them? Right. Like, are you just hunting for commission? Do you want them to just like calm down and accept it and roll over? Right.
Yeah.
Versus, are you going to push the seller to the point that they're insulted? And so the line that we had to walk was, well, our buyer wants us to push the seller harder than I think they should be pushed, because I do think that they don't want to be insulted. And depending on how we write our emails and write our offers, we could risk insulting them. And on the other hand, I think that the buyer is asking for too much. And so I have to advise them, but not totally shut them down, right? Just rationalize with
Yeah.
them. And so ultimately, we ended up working the seller more than the buyer. But I think that a less experienced or maybe worse real estate agent would have just worked our buyer into saying, dude, it's a good deal. You're already getting the insurance stuff covered. Just don't worry about the rest of it. And then gotten their commission and whatever. But like, they wouldn't have gotten the best deal for their buyer.
Yeah.
So ultimately, I'm happy with how it has ended up.
Good. Cool.
Yeah. So those are my business updates.
Next week, Mason's gonna be buying Mar-a-Lago for the 18 million that I got to
I hope so, man. That was my business. For work, which I guess I have under business, even though it's not business, it's work. I've accidentally kind of crushed it this week. I kind of go through periods of like, it's like a month of like not a lot of work going on, and then like a week of a lot of work going on.
Yeah.
And this week was one of those weeks. And on top of the work that I should be doing, I then signed up for extra, because I was like, well, I've kind of not been doing a lot lately, so I'll do a little extra, right? And so I busted ass this week. Um, and they want me to travel twice in May, which is frustrating because I don't want to go anywhere. I hate traveling in general, but traveling for work sounds even worse. Um,
It's terrible.
yeah, I'm not psyched. And it's flying. It's not like Justin drives to another offsite place sometimes, but
I flew to New Orleans to do that work thing.
this is even worse than New Orleans. Yeah, it's not a fun city. But I told him, I was like, hey, listen, at the time I didn't know if we were gonna get through this inspection period or not. I was like, if we get through this inspection period and we're closing on the house, that's gonna be the same week as the first set of travel in May, and I will not go on that travel. I will be here for this closing. And he was like, okay, well, maybe the second one. And now it's looking like closing, depending on how long the insurance stuff takes. It could be in either the first or second set of traveling in May. So now I have to kind of talk to Grace. I'm gonna get a brokerage and then whatever. I don't think I have to be there for the closing, but it's good to show face and be there. So I'm gonna try to prioritize that. Um, but yeah, it's just super fucking annoying. So this better lock in that promotion. They better stop talking about it and actually do it, because I'm not traveling for nothing.
At work, I sent my email out about the parts and materials and talking about how we have a bigger social and cultural issue at hand than just this one issue.
Right.
It took me 12 hours to write that document. I sat down for 8 of those hours. I did not move from my chair, and I continued to type. I typed in that.
You writing about Misha or what?
In that one session, I wrote over 8,000 words.
That's ridiculous, dude.
Yeah, 1,000 words an hour.
Fucking hell.
Yeah, it's 8 hours straight. Just sat down and did it.
Jesus.
I sent that email out, and a couple people haven't responded, but one of the guys who's associated with the team responded, and he said that
He said okay.
what?
He
Yeah,
said
okay. And
so no head.
he opened up the email and he read it, and he was like, this email has taken every single like woe and concern that I've had in my entire time working here and put it into one of the most compelling and persuasive arguments I have ever seen. And he was like, I have not read something this compelling in years.
That's awesome.
And so he was really pumped, and he's printing it out and sharing it with other managers to like try and get them to understand, like, there's a bigger picture at play here rather than just these mission critical box issues that we deal with on a daily basis. So well received on that end. And they're kind of pushing more stuff on me. They want me to like, I don't know how I dug myself this hole, but they want me to go through the entire material acquisition and parts acquisition process. Like this is like high level shit.
Right.
They're like, this is what we do at NASA. This is what we've developed over 20 years. We're not sure if it's the best way to do it. Can you look at it and make an assessment? I'm like, sure, dude. I'm like, sure, but like, it's just weird because like I just got like thrown in, and they're like, we don't know if it's good, just fix it. And I'm like, don't you guys got people for this? I mean, like, I'll help, but like, you know what I mean?
You should be like, hey man, I just got started on this, but just so you know, this feels like level 2 engineering. So I'm just gonna pause until
Feels like level 6 engineer. I'm like, this is like broad strokes. This is like the broad strokes of broad strokes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, I'm having fun with that, but that's about all my work update is.
Awesome.
On writing paperwork. And
What's your life update?
My life update is really no update.
Okay.
My life update is the lack of car work that needs to be performed. That is my life update.
The lack of car work that needs to be.
Yeah, so I didn't do any of the car work that I need to do yet.
Oh, got it.
So I'm just driving my vehicles, picking mindfully. The Miata needs an oil change, and so it's sat this week. It'll sit this coming week.
Yeah.
And the BMW, essentially what I've decided is I'm running the Beamer until it also needs an oil change, which should be in the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Awesome.
And so then I'm just gonna have like my sacrificial day where
We already scheduled that.
I know, but I couldn't make it happen. And so that's kind of what I'm thinking right now. I'm just kind of rolling with the punches, trying to address it.
We should schedule our next one for when I'm out of town.
But that's about all I got. Do you have any life stuff?
I do. So the inspection period took like pretty much all of my time this week. So I have like next to no update on the treasure hunt for 2 weeks in a row, which is not ideal, but it is what it is. My biggest life update is that my contacts are done for real.
Yeah.
All of them are updated in my phone. They're all updated in my Google, and then they automatically sync once a day between the two. Every time I make a new contact, I'm going to have to go in and like adjust the profile picture in Google, but like that's small stuff compared to like the size of everything else.
Yeah.
So the only issue, the last issue, and it's not a big issue, is that people's birthdays show up twice in my calendar. And I think it's because my phone
Oh yeah.
syncs with my contacts and shows it, and then my computer syncs with my contacts and shows it.
Yeah.
So I actually can't remember if the contacts only show up twice in my phone or twice in the computer, but I think that's one setting that I can change. So that's done, which is awesome. So my next long-term project is finances. This is fun. My Quicken account that I had on my last laptop. Quicken is an installation on your computer.
Yeah.
And
I see where this is going.
your categorization of all of your finances is on that file, which is on my old computer, which is bricked. So I can't get to that. So I started to do my monthly finances last night, reinstalled Quicken. I went to the web because their web is really awesome.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, I can do it all from here. And I wanted to add one of my investment accounts, and it said, "Oh, you can only add it from the installation." And I was like, "Well, that's dumb, but whatever."
Yeah.
So I quick installed it, and like everything was blank, and I was like, "Fuck!" So now I'm having to go through and add everything. But I also found out you can link like your Bitcoin and your Venmo and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So I'm going through and adding all those. It would not link Coinbase for some reason yesterday, which is frustrating, but I'm gonna try to figure it out. And then on top of that, I'm gonna figure out there's got to be some way where like I can set a categorization and be like just everything from Pauhana, just log into the Kratom bill. I like
It does that automatically for me. As soon as I go through my finances and I update those payments to the category I want,
Yeah.
any future payments from that same place will automatically go to that category.
I thought I had that
That's
set
how
up too.
I didn't have to set it up, it just did it.
It does it for some of them, but not for Pauhana.
Interesting.
So I'm gonna deal with that tonight. I told Grace yesterday, I was like, wouldn't it be great if like Sunday nights were like our only chill night of the week, where like we shut everything off at like 7 p.m. and then like just chill and go to sleep on time to start Monday on the right foot. She was like, yeah, that would be awesome. And so today when we were at the beach, I was like, dude, I can't wait to do my finances tonight. She was like, aren't we chilling out tonight? And I was like, I can have my laptop like while we're watching TV or whatever we're doing to relax. I can just do it on my lap. She was like, okay. So she conceded.
It's I heard this guy, he was doing like some sort of advertisement. I can't remember what the fucking advertisement for, but I remember the story.
Mhm.
And he was like, "What if we had like male week, like dude week?" And he was like,
Sorry.
where just like dude things got done for the whole year. It was just one week where like every dude just got their shit done, and it would be like
What is
taxes,
Oh,
financial organization,
uh-huh.
like trip planning, family plan, like any of these like big plan things. Like every single dude in the US just had a week to do it, and we just sat at home, all took PTO that week and just cranked it all out. And I was like, that's actually kind of like a cool idea.
Dude.
Like if everyone's on the same page, if we got like a communism approach to this little idea, right?
I'm out.
Right? If like everyone is doing the same thing, like
Yeah.
it would be kind of awesome to just like everyone take a week off of everything,
Mhm.
sort all this shit out so you don't have to worry about it,
Yeah.
like get it all strategized and like automated, and then like the rest of your year can just be like, the way you want
Not
it to
worrying
be.
about it. Yeah.
Right? Yeah, that'd be kind of sick.
Yeah,
Idea.
my finances I had down like pat. Like I've organized my receipts and then I total everything in an Excel sheet and then it automatically tells Grace or I who owes each other what money it auto balances at the end of each month. And then I go categorize it in Quicken to track my spending to make sure that I'm not like losing money every month, right? And when I went to pay March rent, I had like fucking $85 to my name in my account. And now I have like over 10 grand. And so I'm like, we're fucking all this money hit me like all at once. And I want to make sure that I don't like fucking light it all on fire. And now Grace made commission so she can pay for half of rent. So I was like, May rent is coming up. And my brain is still in you have $85 mode. So it's in the don't spend anything mode. So like I don't know if you've seen the tires on the Camaro, but the rear tires are like they've been shot. Like,
Yeah.
now they're fucked, right? I'm trying not to go on the high.
I need fronts on the Miata.
Yeah. So,
'Cause they're not worn out, but they're starting to dry rot on the sidewall.
yeah, mine are
So I gotta get them.
every 6 flavors of fucked. So I need new tires. And I was talking to Grace about it, and I was like, maybe I can hang on until June. And she was like, no, fucking do it now. And I was like, yeah, but it's expensive. And she was like, how expensive? And I was like, all in all, probably like, I don't know, $500. And she was like, dude, that's not bad at all. And then I realized I was like, well, my rent is like $1,700 each month, and I've been paying the entire thing. But now Grace can do half because she's got her commission. So I'm going to be getting like $850 from her. And like, that's almost like the tires are only like half that. And I was like, oh shit, dude, I can pay my half of rent and tires this month and still be spending less money than I did in March. And I was like, this is awesome. So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to going through my Quicken to figure out where everything is. But now I have to recategorize
My
everything.
business expenses are like
Yeah.
80% of what my spending is.
Right.
It's like, it's like I don't have any leeway in any other avenue, It's
Mhm.
like necessary car parts, like general living expenses like rent, water, electricity, and internet.
Yeah.
And then it's like all business expenses, different
Yep.
subscriptions, different this,
Yeah.
different that, whatever. And then I realized the other day that I could use a credit card to pay for my fulfillment. And then I immediately realized that that was a terrible idea.
It's a slippery slope.
So yeah, it's a very easily slippery slope.
Yeah.
So I'm being very, very cautious,
Yeah.
mitigating myself on that usage. But I did have to use it because I wanted to fulfill approximately 40 orders before the tariffs hit.
Yeah.
And so I used a credit card to bring in like a $500 balance,
Right.
get all those orders fulfilled before the price increases, and then kind of restart from there. So I did use it once, but since then I haven't.
Yeah.
So, and I haven't before that either. So
I've been waiting to do the 0% APR credit card for when I quit my job because I was anticipating like having no income for a significant period of time. But now that I kind of see how the real estate process works, like each lead should lead to 2 more leads, right? So like when we get this house sold, we're gonna we're gonna build like a paper advertisement to mail to that neighborhood and say, hey, your neighbor just sold their house for X amount of money. We would sell your house too.
yeah,
You send that out for 2 or 3 weeks, and then you go to door to door and see if they're willing to sell, and then get listings from that, right?
yeah.
So that should easily lead to 2 more, right? And so it snowballs. And so now I'm looking at it, and I'm like, well, am I gonna need a 0% APR credit card?
They offered me a 0% personal credit card for whatever fucking
Yeah?
reason. I don't know why.
Who did?
I've had
Chase?
outstanding balance on my Chase card for like 4 months. They were like, I came in one day like broke as shit trying to withdraw $750 for rent, and they were like, oh, like you're pre-approved for 0% personal credit.
like,
card."
why?
I was like, really? And then they're like, yeah, it's 0 APR for 12 months on a personal credit card. I was like, give me that phone call. And so she's called me this week. I haven't called her back yet, but I haven't fucking getting that. I was like, that is sick. Because my APR is like 28% right now.
Yeah, that's
So it's like if I don't pay it at the end of every month,
it
like
goes up
it's quick.
Yeah.
It took me literally 4 months to get it down from 3.5 grand to like $500 where
That's
it's at
fucking
now.
wild.
Yeah, because
That's
and I'm like, I was like saving and like 10, 20 hours of overtime every week just trying to catch
Yeah.
up on shit,
Yeah.
But that's kind of like the game you play, especially with like the drop shipping model initially.
Yeah.
You just kind of like
High
gotta
initial
get through this
investment.
grunt period,
Yeah.
and then you can kind of ride things out in the latter months.
Yeah. I'm thinking about getting an Amex card, just to increase my credit limit, like increase my borrowing limit, because I've had the same credit card for years, and my limit is like $2,500. So like it's a small card, and my credit score is solid. It's like 730 or something.
Okay.
But I mean, Greg has shown me his Amex account. He has one card, but the limit is wild, and his credit score is wild. Like I didn't know credit scores got that high.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, dude, that kind of borrowing power is kind of what I'm looking for, because
I think you have to get recommended for an Amex though.
I've gotten letters in the mail that say I'm pre-approved.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
We've gotten letters in the mail for Kahuna that says Kahuna's pre-approved.
So that is true. That is true.
Yeah.
I know that my mentor said that there was a specific Amex card that was only by recommendation,
Oh,
and
interesting.
he makes a lot more money than I do, and so he got
yeah.
he got pre-approved for it, and he got it. And he said that he'd put in a referral for me if I was interested, and it has like really good cashback rates and
Yeah.
a whole bunch of other
They
jazz
just
and
cost
whatever.
money. The nice ones are like $200 a year.
That's why I was like, hey, like this sounds awesome, but I don't know if I have the bandwidth for it right now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I was like, I got a 0% APR credit card right now. I'm just going to ride this out. And he was like, hey, this card has crazy cash back on it. It's really awesome. You could put it on your ad account. And then every time you spend money on ads, because I spend over 10K on ads a month.
Right.
And he was like, every time that 10K, you could be getting like 4 or 5% back on that.
Right.
Like some crazy amount.
And that could cover the $200.
And that's like $400, $500 a month that you could be getting back on that. Right. And I was like, that sounds awesome. My concern is that when I've previously linked credit cards to the account, I've had nothing but issues. And I have a good system right now where I can pay by invoice through the ad agency I use.
Right, right.
And although I get no cash back on it and I do get charged like a transfer fee,
Right.
it's small peanuts to me in my mind in comparison to having my entire business shut down.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And so I'm like, this is cool. I'm hesitant. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's kind of how I've gone about it so far. Maybe I'll change my mind come December and stuff like that, because he's seeing the potential for the business to scale like tenfold or more than what it is right now, tenfold, 20-fold. And so at that point, if I'm spending 100K a month on ads,
Right.
like I don't know if I'm going to be wanting to do invoice transfers for all of that.
Yeah.
Right. And
That's
so I'll
worth
figure
it.
it out from there. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm considering getting an Amex card. So I'll let you know how my process goes on that. But
Yeah.
the thing is, those things have always been like, do the contacts list first, because contacts are what make you money in real estate. Do the contacts list and then do this other stuff. And so the increasing my credit limit is the next thing on my list. And I don't want to spend money on an Amex card, but I'll probably get like a lower level one. And
Yeah.
the longer you're in a company, the more they'll give you later on, right? So if I start my Amex career now on like a free card, then in 2 years when I want to upgrade it, they'll be fine with it. Um, so that's the contacts update. I ran into Shaw for the first time in a long time at Starbucks. He's driving this like old military Jeep thing, which
Oh,
was
cool.
super cool. It was good to see him. He's doing well. Dude, I have the bingo dog guy letter on here. Dude, Joel doesn't like to like, you know, he doesn't want to spread rumors or like talk shit or anything like that. And so after he sent us the letter in the group chat, I thought he was saying like, "Oh, I don't want to talk about anything, like I don't want to spread rumors." And so I like gave up on the conversation. But I ran into him the other day and he was like, "No, dude, like it really happened. Like the guy really." And I was like, "Okay, I understand he said that, right?" Like so there's for context, there's a fucking annoying guy who brings his dog to bingo every week or every 2 weeks at Pauhana, and someone wrote a letter and left it on his car that was like, "Dude, stop bringing your annoying dog here or train it," right?
Mm.
And they brought it into the bar and they were like, "Oh my god, someone wrote this letter. Like they're really upset with me." And then one of his friends was like, "Oh, I did it. Haha, it's a joke." And Joel said he got like really red in the face and whatever. And I was like, "Yeah, it sounds like someone actually left that angry letter." And then they brought it in. We're confused. Then one of his friends took the fall for him, got embarrassed because he didn't actually write the letter, but he took the fall for him so that it's all a joke and he can still bring his dog in the bar because it's not a real complaint.
Yeah.
That's my theory, right? And Joel said, "Well, that's not true because the guy said that he wrote it and they were laughing about it, whatever. It's a whole thing." And I was like, I think that you are telling me the truth and that's what happened. I don't believe them,
Yeah.
his friend.
Yeah.
And then Joel was like, "No, dude, it's serious because like 2 weeks ago, they were at some like whatever frisbee golf thing or something, and someone actually left a letter on his truck." And so then his friend thought it would be funny to write another one, but at bingo. And I was like, "So you're telling me that it's actually happened for real legitimately before, but it's more likely that his friend wrote this as a joke?" And Joel was like, "Well, yeah, because he said so." And I was like, "Dude, I don't trust that. I
Yeah.
don't trust that at all." Right? How many times have I written a letter to Tyler in Pauhana about how terrible you are as a brewer and then told you that it's just a joke? And he was like, "Well, never, but guys do that." And I was like, "God, friends don't do that. What are you talking about? Like,
Yeah.
I've never said a bad word about you behind your back."
Yeah.
Um, and I mean that, Joel. I love you. But I think Joel's getting lied to, and no one lies to my friends. So I'm going to figure out what actually happened because that pissed me off. Um, Also, have you seen the Bethesda Skyrim thing? Have you seen this?
Yeah.
You're familiar with GTA 6 and how they keep dragging it out and like they keep
I
delaying
remember it was
the
supposed to come out in
release.
like high school.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's still they just announced it's going to come out not in June like it was supposed to, but in 2026, right? Bethesda, who owns Skyrim, released a video the other day and they were like, "Hey, we're here to announce we're going to remaster the Skyrim game. We're going to take the game that you love, but now it's dated and old and slow, and we're going to put it into Real Engine 5 and we're going to redo all the graphics and stuff, and it's going to be super fun. You can relive your old like fun game
Mm.
with like modern reaction time and like retextured everything. It's going to look awesome, right? The old game that you loved, right? And it's going to be available it's available right now. Like, go get it." And everyone was like, "What the fuck?" Because like no one ever does that with games. They build up the hype, right?
Yeah.
They're getting so much press for dropping it in the ad they announced it. Everyone's playing it. Everyone's like, "I can't believe I woke up, was sitting on the toilet before going to work, saw this, and now I have to go work 8 hours before downloading Skyrim." Dude, I'm stoked.
Yeah.
So like, I thought that was a really awesome like marketing difference between drawing it out for way too long and like edging your
Yeah.
audience versus just giving it to them.
I have an ad idea for my business.
Mhm.
And it's actually something that I could do myself, and film myself doing and pose as like a business representative
Yeah.
instead, because I don't need like a mom or someone to film it and be like, "Hey," and just kind of play into this tariff price increase concept,
Yeah.
right? And be like, "Hey, a lot of people are raising their prices. We're sticking to our guns, and we've dropped our price."
Nice.
right?
Uh-huh.
And so like kind of framing it in that way where it's like, you know what, everyone's raising our prices. We're actually going the opposite route and we're dropping them.
Yeah.
And I can drop them like a tiny bit or just like leave the discounts I have on there currently, right?
Just leave it the same price. No one's gonna know.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we dropped our prices and then don't change anything.
I think that would be like a really interesting marketing technique, and I'd be interested to see kind of how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought about that this week as well.
Yeah. Tariffs? How about 10% off?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
All right. I got two more things. We lost the Pope this week. Pope Francis died.
Yes, we did.
Do you think Trump will be the next Pope?
No,
Okay.
I think that's highly unlikely.
Well, I thought it was worth an ask. You know, people didn't think he would be president ever. It's that true.
That is true.
Okay. Here's my last thing.
I think it's more likely that Donald Trump becomes Jewish than he becomes the Pope.
So the Pope isn't Jewish.
The Pope is not Jewish.
Okay,
That's
got it.
correct. Yeah.
And Trump isn't Jewish.
Judaism and Christianity are different religions. Jews are God's chosen people because Jesus was born a Jew. But Judaism is not Christianity. The Old Testament is a reflection of Judaism, but the New Testament is the gospel of Christ.
What's the difference?
Two different parts of the Bible.
But it's the same book?
It's the same book because the Bible is largely a historical account. That's how it reads. It's like
Why do they believe different things if it's
what?
the same book? It's the same book, but they believe different things, or they believe the same thing but don't like each other?
There's so the New Testament is the gospel of Christ. The Old Testament is a reflection of Judaism, right? But the core beliefs in the Old Testament are extremely similar between Judaism and Christianity, right? The reason that the Bible is different is because it takes into account the gospel of Christ in the New Testament that Judaism doesn't believe in.
So Jews don't believe in Jesus Christ being
the Messiah and the Son of God.
That's why they don't like each other.
Well, I wouldn't say that they don't like each other. They just have different beliefs. There's a lot of Christians and Jews that are friends. It's not like the Muslim versus Jewish history.
Wasn't that Crusades? Weren't the Crusades them not liking each other? Or am I missed?
There were a lot of different Crusades. I'm not up to snuff on the different Crusades and how they happened and why.
I haven't seen any.
I'm definitely not educated enough to speak on it, but I mean, there have been Crusades. I'm sure there have been Crusades.
I thought that was the Christians and the Jews not liking each other. I thought that
could be potentially. I'm honestly not well versed on it.
I thought that was the whole Indiana Jones movie where it was the difference between Jews and Christians. I haven't seen it in a long time.
It could be potentially. The history of Jewish and Christian relations are really interesting.
Got it.
Yeah, I haven't read into it enough. I've just seen like snippets here and there and stuff like that.
Got it.
But by and large, the core differences between Christianity and then like Judaism or like the Islamic faith is that actually Judaism, the Islamic faith, and Christianity, of course, all recognize Jesus Christ as a real person who actually lived.
Sure.
The difference comes in the last 3 days of his life. It's did he die on the cross, and then did he actually become resurrected? Right? Those are the concrete differences between those three religions. All three religions acknowledge in their text that Jesus Christ was a real person who actually lived, who actually, was at this time,
it's just varying degrees of how important he was.
Varying perspectives on the last 3 days, what actually happened. That's where they differ.
But okay, so one of them is all about death to America, right? Which one are they? What do they think? Isn't the Muslim one that the Taliban death to America shit? That's part of their religion, right?
Well, I mean, the Quran was formed much before America was formed. The Islamic faith, there are
is Islamic Muslim, or is that different?
Yes, the Islamic faith is the Muslim faith.
Oh, they're the same. Okay,
yeah. Muslims are the people.
Islam is the religion.
Islam is the religion. I hope I'm getting the right. I
don't know.
Anyways, there's the Quran, and then there's I believe it's the Sudarium or a similar name to that. The Quran is like
Silmarillion.
I don't know.
Okay.
The Quran is like the base text.
Okay.
And then there's a revised. Not a revised, but an added text from the Prophet Muhammad.
It's like a DLC.
That kind of exactly. It's like it expands on the principles in the Quran. So a lot of the controversial stuff that you see in regards to the Islamic faith comes from that
DLC.
that essentially that extended pack on the Quran, right, from the Prophet Muhammad. A lot of different there's some discrepancies in the stories told, some controversy here and there, some contradicting statements, some statements that seem outdated or odd at this point, right? And so there's a certain group of the Islamic faith and Muslims that believe in just the Quran, and then there's a certain group that believe in both.
Got
A
it.
vast majority of the people who believe solely in the Quran are like genuinely good, peaceful people, because
Right.
the preachings are there's many good preachings in there, and they're relatively similar to like some basic principles
Christianity
from
and Judaism.
Christianity or Judaism,
Right.
right?
Right.
The added text is where you get a lot of the controversy and a lot of like a lot
Violence.
of the Jewish violence in particular stems from that those texts from Muhammad,
Right.
written by his disciples at that time. So that's kind of where that aggression comes in
Huh.
with
Got it.
that religious side, but
Got it.
it's kind of broken up into two in that sense. But then the
Do they hate each other?
who hate
Like,
each other.
but amongst Islams or Muslims who believe in Islam, like, do the people that only believe in the Quran hate the people who believe the Quran and the DLC, and like they don't get along, or are they all chill?
Um, that would probably be a question to ask of someone of the Islamic faith.
Got
I'm
it.
not sure. I would
Sam?
assume, yeah,
Okay.
but she only believes in the Quran side of things.
Got it. Okay.
Um, the I would assume that there's probably some controversy. I don't know how heated the controversy is. The reason I
Mm.
assume there's some controversy is because there's already controversy between Catholics and Protestants. So why wouldn't there be controversy between, an entirely separate text and not believing in that text, right?
What's the difference between Catholics and Protestants?
Catholics and Protestants have a different. There's varying denominations of Protestant. Like you have Baptist,
I
or
know
you
that one.
have uh,
Christian.
yeah, yeah, Christian would it kind of, when people say Christian, it's like a generic Protestant
Methodist.
Methodist, right? Yeah, thank you. And so you have different denominations. And so those different denominations have slightly different beliefs about different practices or different things that were told in the Bible,
Hmm.
right? And that's why you have discrepancies between like different branches of Orthodoxy, like Russian Orthodox versus East Orthodox versus, um, you know, there's some different variations of Orthodox in like Australia or in Africa, right?
Right.
There's different sects everywhere, I guess. I don't know if that's a technical term, but that's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
term I'll use. Um, but each of those kind of different branches has slightly different practices when it comes to like things like communion upon Easter, and how different parts of the text are interpreted and how they're pulled in. And so there's debate about those between those different groups. Or like
Right.
Catholics largely follow the Pope, versus like the Orthodox have very similar practices to Catholics, but they're just based in the text and their specific practices. They don't look directly at the Pope for guidance, whereas like Catholics are very tied to the Pope, versus
Gotcha.
Protestants aren't really tied to the Pope very much at all.
Hmm.
And so there's just kind of different approaches, but the text is essentially the same.
Gotcha.
And then there's different practices in terms of focus on like Old Testament versus New Testament and how those kind of play in and pull together,
Right.
stuff like that. But the the reason I bring this up is there's likely controversy between the different branches of the Islamic faith.
Right.
I don't know specifically what that controversy is because I'm not well versed on it enough. But that's kind of like the breakdown. I
Gotcha.
forgot how we got there, but
Trump being the Pope.
oh yeah,
You don't think so?
probably not.
Okay.
Unlikely.
Last thing in my life update. I learned something new about Ayrton Senna.
Oh.
Would you like to learn?
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked. My favorite car is the MP4 5, the 1989 Honda V10 McLaren F1.
Yeah.
Right. So Senna won in 88, 90, and 91. Right. 89 is the only year in that string that he didn't win because Prost won. Right.
Yep.
So that in that year, Senna and Prost were both driving for McLaren. It came down to the last two races. Senna had to win both to win the title. And in the second to last race in Japan, he dive bombed Prost into the last chicane. Prost turned in on him. They crashed. Prost got out of his car. Senna got his car going with the help of the marshals, went on to fix his car and win the race. And then afterward, he was disqualified, right?
Yep.
Which took him out of the title fight, and he wasn't allowed to race for like 6 months or something, right?
Yeah.
And then in 1990, also going into the penultimate race in Japan, this time Senna's leading. This time Prost is driving for Ferrari. They go down into turn one. Prost is ahead. Prost turns in, Senna comes up his inside, hits him. They both crash out. Senna wins the title, right? That's all I knew. I learned new information this week. So, in 1989, going into that last race, FISA, which was the old version of the FIA, was headed by a French president who was very tight with Alain Prost because he was French.
Yeah.
And FISA was not a huge fan of Senna because of how aggressive Senna was on track, right? And so apparently, when Senna threw it down the inside of Prost, and then Prost turned in on him and they crashed out, and Senna got going again, apparently he was disqualified, not because he needed the marshal's help to get his car going. That rule was later added.
It's because of the exit road.
It's because he cut the chicane.
Yeah.
Right? Which is wild because the only reason that exit road is there is if you lock up going into the final corner, and then you cut the chicane anyways.
And there were drivers the next year who used that and did not face the same penalty.
Exactly. Yeah. And so at the time, Senna came out and was like, the French president of FISA is biased. He doesn't like me, he has a personal grudge against me, and he's giving me this penalty because he doesn't like me as a person, and that's wrong. And the FISA president said, I don't like that you said that, so I'm going to fine you $10,000, and then I'm going to ban you for a year. And so Senna came out with an apology, and that was reduced to a $100,000 penalty and a 6-month ban, right? So he was able to race in 1990. In 1990, Prost went to Ferrari. There's tension between them still. There's tension between Senna and the FIA president still, right?
Yeah.
They get to the penultimate race. Prost has to win the last 2 races in order to be able to take the title from Senna. And so they go around and they qualify in Japan. Senna puts it on pole, right? Pole in Japan is on the dirty side of the track.
Yeah.
It's the inside line, but it's the dirty part of the track. So Senna said to the marshals, he was like, hey, I would like to swap first and second, right? I want to be on the clean side of the track because that's the preferred line. I got pole, so I should have the preferred position, right? And they said, yeah. So they swapped the spots. So Senna gets to start on the clean side, right? The morning of the race, the FISA president gets word of this and reverses the decision. Makes Senna start on the dirty side. Senna's furious. Senna gets a bad start. Senna crashes into Prost. They cross out. Senna wins the title, right? Huge tension between him and the French president, right? French president's furious because Senna, didn't have the right to the corner and he crashed out anyways, right? But Senna wins that title, right? What I later learned is that after Senna died, the French president, before Senna died, at that race, they were like, Senna, you crashed into Prost. Was that just to win the title? And that's when the famous, you go for a gap. If you don't, then you're not a driver, right? If you no longer go for a gap that exists, you're no longer a racing driver. That's when that quote comes out, right? Later on, after Senna's other titles, they ask him again, and Senna's like, I'm sick of talking about this. I had decided after they swapped me back to the dirty side of the track that I would be going into that corner ahead of Prost. It didn't matter where he was on track. I was going to be going ahead. I had already decided that before the start of the race, regardless of where I am. And so some people took that to mean, oh my God, he crashed into him on purpose, right? Senna then dies. And then after Senna's death, people are talking to the French FIA president after he steps down and is replaced by the next guy, Max Mosley. And he comes out and he says, yeah, 1989, that penalty was because I was biased against him. I didn't like him saying that shit. And so I gave him that penalty just because of that. And then my point was proven when he crashed into Prost in 1990 because he's an asshole. And everyone was like, whoa, I had no idea that he should not have gotten a penalty for that. And he should have had a chance to win the 1989 championship, right? I haven't gone back to see if he won the final race that year, but if he did, then I would argue to say that he finished on track ahead both races and won that title. But I didn't know that it had been confirmed by the French president.
That is wild.
Yeah. So all of this just comes down to another reason to hate the French, But man, dude.
Yeah, that is wild.
Made my blood boil this week. That's my life update.
Cool.
All right, you ready to get into the actual podcast?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I've got an intro for us. So today's theme is on push versus pull motivation. One of our favorite analogies is the story of the cat and the cheese. In this experiment, scientists place a rat in a tube and secure its tail to a spring that measures how hard the rat is pulling. They waft the scent of cheese into the front of the tube, and the rat pulls with X force. They then waft in the scent of a cat from behind it, and it pulls with 2x force. This opens an interesting dilemma. Are we more motivated to escape something than we are to work towards something? If so, how do we achieve our loftiest goals if we successfully escape the peril of poverty when we aren't even halfway to our end goal? In this podcast, I'd like to define the two terms, speak on the benefits and downfalls of each, and discuss when we choose to use one over the other. So for segment one, we're talking about pull motivation. So I define pull motivation as the kind of motivation that reminds you of your goals and encourages you through positive reinforcement to continue. Common phrases I would associate with pull motivation are: you got this, keep going, you're almost there, stay strong, if they can do it, so can you, I got that dog in me, and stuff like that.
Mhm.
To me, pull motivation is the kind I experience when I watch videos of people on yachts or racing cars, or Hormozy videos of him talking about sales tactics, stuff that gets me excited, right? How do you define pull motivation?
Um, I linked it. I did like a linking technique between push and pull, and so I
Okay.
didn't directly define push or pull, but I
So
kind of did a link in an example
uh,
style. And so I see pull motivation is more closely linked to desire.
uh,
So it's something that's almost within reach that you're trying to get. And I think that corresponds more towards a vision for the future, the potential for freedom, something that you're looking to achieve.
mhm.
And then I also wrote here that I believe pull motivation is more catered towards long term planning and thinking more broadly over the coming future years.
Mhm.
I guess that's the same thing,
Yeah,
coming
yeah,
future years,
I
but
hear you.
more and it is more linked to growth, fulfillment, and mastery of something.
Yeah,
So that's kind of my definition for pull
yeah.
in that way.
I had an interesting thought, which was pull motivation kind of pulls you toward what you're interested in. Like it almost feels like gravity. It's not like it doesn't take a ton of effort. It's more like it's interesting to you, or it's your passion, or you have like a deep desire to do it. So it doesn't take as much energy, I think, as push. Pull motivation almost draws you in by nature of like, this is my goal and this is what I want to move toward.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It doesn't in the latter segment, I know we just started, but
that's okay.
in the latter segment, I have a interesting like thought about. Oh man, I guess it's written here. I could just find it, but the push more motivation I find is more kind of like mission critical box work versus the pull motivation is more mission potential box work.
hmm
Um,
What do you mean by potential?
like this is something that would be beneficial to me in my future and would help me out long term versus push is more I need to get this done now. This
Yep.
is critical.
Yep.
Um, and so the effort and the Hormozy talks a lot about how the work starts when the motivation ends,
hmm
right? And so I think a lot of push stuff is it's critical in the moment motivation.
hmm
But a lot of pull stuff I think is a lot easier to put off
Yeah.
because it's a lot more out of reach in the distance. And so that's I think a lot of like the grind to get through something comes from having to go through that pull motivation and get to where you want to go. Like the grind process is a lot more challenging when you have a pull motivation, I find.
It's the grinding is more challenging when you have a pull motivation, or grinding
I,
is easier when you have pull motivation.
my argument would be more challenging because it's not critical in the moment. With a push motivation,
Got it. Yes.
you're in the moment critically and you have to get this
Right.
done. So the motivation is incredibly high to work towards it.
Right.
Versus like long-term vision plans and other stuff like that with pull motivation,
Yeah.
um the level of grit or effort that you have to put in to achieve those pull goals
Right.
is maybe not necessarily greater, but over a longer time horizon.
Yeah, it's like if it's 3 AM and you have the decision of do we do this documentation or tell the team we're not going to comp, it's not pull
Yeah.
motivation. It's like we just have to do this right now.
Yeah.
Right. Just
Yeah.
push through it, right?
Right.
Yeah, I think that pull motivation is more like energizing and less draining because it's like daydreaming kind of.
Mhm.
Like pull motivation is like I'm going to embark on this large scale endeavor because I know that the end goal is a good thing, right? So like pull motivation is, dude, it'd be cool to do real estate because then I can sell and make money on my own time. And then push is literally every moment after that because most of it sucks getting up to the point that you make a sale,
Yeah.
right? There's a really interesting real world example here of why pull motivation does not really work for me from rowing. Because on my high school team, coxswains would struggle to switch between the two teams because men and women respond to different types of motivation. So like the women's team would sit down on the ergs and do a 2K. The men's team would listen while we're lifting, and then we would swap, and the men's team would go, and the women would listen,
Mm.
right? And The men's team operates entirely off of push. Like winning is not a want, it's a need. And the women's team would always inspire each other instead of like pushing each other, right? So you would hear a lot of like, keep going or you can do this or like do it for us, like type of stuff, because that's what motivated them is like lofty goals of like, grandeur and doing it for your fellow woman and stuff like that, right? Do it because you love it. And a lot of the men's stuff we'll get into under push with
Yeah.
more like, aggressive, I'll say. So I think that maybe that's a good way of saying it is that push motivation is more aggressive and pull motivation is more inspirational. That's how
Yeah.
I would think of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of have a breakdown. I want to save this for segment 3, but I have a breakdown for like how I use each
Yeah,
and when to use them in addition to how to toggle between them.
right.
Right. But yeah, I would say pull motivation is more broad strokes. What's your vision? What's your long-term achievement? What's
Right.
your goal? And what are you working towards?
Yeah. I think that pull motivation like wakes you up early because you're excited to go to work.
Yeah.
Or practicing a skill because you genuinely love it, or studying because you're fascinated, not because there's a deadline. It's like doing something out of your own volition. It's the motivation is more of like an excitement than like an anxiety.
Yeah.
So I think that on a larger scale, it's kind of like an adrenaline hit of excitement rather than like an adrenaline hit of fucking panic. Like I have to get it done right
Yeah.
now, right? But that's most of what I have on pull.
Yeah, I would agree.
Okay.
I think most of my conversation will be in regards to the third segment.
Yeah, yeah.
I think
So I mean, the
first two
first
are
two are
just
just
kind of definitional.
yeah, defining them.
Yeah.
So for push motivation, to me, it's best represented by gritting your teeth, putting your head down, and pushing through the difficult time, not because you want to, but because you have a primal urge that won't let you accept any other outcome other than getting the job done.
Yeah.
And I think that most people view push motivation as negative, such as phrases like, I have to do this, or something bad will happen, or I have to escape this tube, or the rat will eat me. And I utilize it a little bit differently, using push motivation as the blinders that block out all the outcomes that I consider to be unacceptable. So you've mentioned on the podcast before that you like to stress yourself out until you're so anxious you
Yeah.
literally cannot function without doing the thing you're supposed to.
Right.
So is this your form of push motivation?
Yeah, yeah. I wrote that about that later on. But that is my form of generating a push motivation to
Mhm,
get me going.
mhm.
And then once I get into that, because I use it to get into a flow.
Right.
Then once I'm in that flow, then I can have a pull perspective
Mm.
on the issue I'm trying to solve and look at more broader strokes, right?
It's so interesting because I think we use them in polar opposite ways.
That's
Yeah,
interesting.
I'm excited for segment 3.
Yeah. So, like, for example, with my ad stuff,
Mhm.
I'll push to start forming the storyboards and looking at stuff.
Yeah,
I'll push myself to just start somewhere and start throwing some stuff on the page, writing some stuff on my whiteboard, whatever,
right.
scribbling out. I know it's shit, but I know I just got to write out this like 30-minute shit period.
Yeah,
Right. And so I just go through it. And I'm like, okay, there's a lot of good stuff here. There's also a lot of like crap and it's all over the place.
right.
Let me think about broad strokes how I want to approach this. And then that's when I get to the point where I'm like, okay, I'm going to skip this week of dynamic creative testing. I'm going to go through this process, look at the broader strokes, reanalyze what I've done. And like, that's kind of when I get the broad picture is
Right.
after I use that little push to get me into the frame where I can look at the broader picture and the pull style picture.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I use it opposite. I use push motivation to keep me focused once I'm going. So like, what do I have written here? Achieve like phrases like achieve your dreams inspire me far less than phrases like you will not lose if you do not quit. Keep going. Right. So I use pull motivation to kind of like convince me to get started. Like, dude, think of the glory at the end of it. So like for rowing, it would be, hey, like I'm gonna row this season long term because
Yeah.
I want to win in the spring. And then every second from then on is push motivation of like fucking, you're not gonna get the thing that you want if you don't grit your teeth right now. Right. Um, so a few examples of those phrases, for rowing is you will not lose this race. Your competitors are out there working to beat you right now. What are you going to do about it? And stopping is not an option. And rowing was a really great teacher in that regard because you cannot stop in the middle of a race because if you stop moving, I mean, your blades are going to hit everyone else's blades or someone's going to spear you in the back with an oar and everyone's going to hate you. So like
Yeah.
once you get started, it's like, oh, it doesn't matter how you feel. You're going to do this for the rest of the race. And like you can stop trying, like you can stop pulling, but everyone's going to hate you for it. So like you're kind of forced to continue, right?
Yeah, I think it depends on the time frame you look at it in too, because like I have a longer time horizon of like this is the life I want and this is my inspiration for it.
Mhm.
But then I have like the micro things that need to happen in between there, and that's when I have that like push pull dynamic, right?
Mhm.
And so it's like I kind of utilize both to get me to the broader pull
Mhm.
motivation, and then I have, but thinking back on it, to get to that larger pull perspective where I have like this big outlook on life, my initial position came from a place of push of
Right.
like, what the fuck am I doing here? Like
It
this, my 9 to 5 doesn't make any mathematical sense to get me to where I want to go.
Mhm.
How am I going to solve this? Like, I just got to do something. And that's just kind of when I scramble. And then I start to realize that pull. So it's interesting because it depends on me on the time horizon you look at. Because if you look at it on the broader picture time horizon, you could say, okay, I've got this big pull motivation and then I use push in the middle to get there.
Right.
But then on, in kind of the more micro level, it's like I'm using push to get pull and then push to get pull and then push to get
Right.
pull, right?
Right. Right.
So it's interesting when you frame it, depending on the time frame you frame it in,
Yeah.
it changes.
Well, it's the same dynamic, but on a different scale. So it's either
Yeah.
like this major task or this minor task. So it's like drop shipping versus this specific advertisement. It
Yeah.
follows the same pattern. It's just you blow it up or shrink it down.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So like mid race, the men's team was far less aspirational and far more aggressive. So we would have phrases like, "How bad do you want to win?" Or "Sarasota's at their boathouse right now doing one more piece. Are you done for the day? Are you going to let them outwork you?" And every stroke shaves tenths off your nationals time come spring.
Mm.
But it really showed itself in the sprint calls because like some teams like to have like a secret sprint call where you don't like you say it to your crew and your crew starts to pick up the pace without alerting the other boats. Because if they know that you're sprinting, they can sprint at the same time and then everyone hurts at the same rate. But if you get the drop on them, you can maybe eke out like a seat or two ahead of them, and then that motivates you for the rest of the race, right? And more importantly, it demotivates the other boats. But our sprint calls were like fucking aggressive, and the women's team would call us out for it because some of the notable ones, these are all written in all caps because my boats did not have quiet sprint calls. It was aggressive. The first one is just dominate and then fucking go. Have you met Marco we've seen each other at Pauhana a couple times. I
Probably.
don't think so. Maybe. His favorite was take them from behind if we were like a seat or two down. One of my favorites was bury them. One is no strokes off. You keep their foot on their neck. And then my personal favorite one, which is the least popular one, but my favorite, Marco would say, "Let's go, gentlemen. Last 500. The team tents are roaring right now. Their parents are watching right now. Embarrass them." That was my favorite one, was embarrass them. And so we would have plans like going into races where it's like, hey, like they are not a very strong team. We probably don't have to give a ton of energy today, but we only have one race today. So like, let's see what the winning margin can be. And we would go out there and like, we would have goals of like, not whether or not we were going to win, but just how much are we going to win by? And then like you have even more energy if you're going into the last 500 and you're like fucking 3 boat lengths ahead of them. Cause then you
Yeah.
can gas it and be like, can I make that 5 boat lengths? It's not like scrapping for a barely win. It's like,
Mm.
can I fucking crush them? Right. So it was a lot more aggressive, but that's what I personally need to get through that piece. So it was difficult when we had women's team coxes sub in for men's team coxes because in the middle of the race, if they're like, let's go, we're almost there, do it for your friends. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, I want to give up right now, right?
Yeah.
Even though it's motivational, like I do not respond to pull in the moment.
Yeah.
I need aggression. I need like
Yeah.
fucking like fight back, right? So the men's team responded very well to this style of motivation. And I think rowing gave me the ability to sit down and like force myself to do the work today. So now my push motivation isn't so much like embarrass them, but it's more like, it manifests itself in drive and discipline more so than like aggression, which I think for the daily work is good because I don't want to compare my real estate work to someone else's because I don't care about them. I just want to focus on my own work. Right. And in the instance of racing, it's like, you know, for me, my competitive nature comes out when it's like, I want to hurt you, you know? If winning is that important to me and I'm in direct competition with someone else, that's when I focus on that. But in my daily life, it's more so like the push motivation is like, dude, just do the work. Like,
Yeah.
that's what I have for push.
what else do I got? Yeah, more linked to necessity,
Yeah.
pressure of time, fear of failure, and deadlines.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then we talked about my working strategy already. That's on here.
It's interesting because it sounds to me like your push comes from like like I'm worried that the mouse is gonna eat me. And my push is more like there is no circumstance that I will allow the mouse to eat me. Like it's more of
The
an
cat.
yeah, sorry,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
cat.
Okay, okay.
It's more like a uncertain panic and more of like a certain like there's only one direction and it sucks, but that's the only direction and you're gonna go do it. It's interesting how those two are different.
Yeah, you said that I was more of the I'm not gonna let the cat eat me.
It's more of like the I'm worried the cat is gonna eat me. I need to do this so that I don't get eaten. Like
Yeah,
I'm like
yeah.
it's more of like a panic eat,
That's
right?
definitely more of the approach that I have.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because I do think about kind of similar to you. I think about, I think that broadly speaking, I probably work harder than most people in the drop shipping field.
Hmm.
I would say I at least I think I make a lot of sacrifice and I put a lot of time into it. And
Hmm.
I'm up until 4 or 5 in the morning every day, and then I'm up at 9 or 10.
Right.
Right. And so I do that rinse and repeat every day. So I'd say like in the e-commerce field, I'm probably at least in the upper 25% of effort putting in.
Right.
I would hope so.
Right.
Um, but I don't let that kind of thought get in the way of me putting an extra hour in. Like
Yeah.
I don't like it could be 3 in the morning and I could go, my mind could go to a place of you've already put in so much effort for the day, just go to bed.
Mhm.
But instead I go, there's still someone out there who's working harder with less than I am and achieving more with less.
Mhm.
Am I gonna go to bed right now or am I gonna let them take over my business model?
Hmm.
And so like that kind of push keeps me going.
Gotcha.
And then I get the overarch I use the pull perspective as like the overarching I'm just gonna have to sit out this period of the year where things are slower
Mhm.
and come October, that's when it can start to ramp up because of sales and stuff like that.
Right.
Like I'll use the pull to kind of get me through that, and then I use the push to get me through each little
Like
day.
day to day. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's interesting because I don't compare myself or use that to push myself through the day to day. I kind of I turn it on and off. Like
Mm,
um how do I compare this? Like soccer. So I was having I was at my buddy's birthday party in high school, right? And we were playing soccer and it was like 5v5 or something. And we were just having fun. And I wasn't trying very hard and I wasn't really worried about losing points or whatever. It didn't matter to me if we won or lost. But then my best friend at the time who was on my team was like, dude, lock in, we need to win this. And I flipped the switch and I was like, okay, now I'm gonna get aggressive. Now I'm gonna shove people. Now I'm gonna take penalties. Now I'm gonna do what I can to get the ball across the field. Like I turned it on, right?
mm,
Same game, same stakes. The only difference is that my buddy was like, I want to win this. And I was like, all right, let's fucking win it. Right.
yeah,
And so I kind of have that switch turned off in like real estate and other things because whether or not I sell this house or whether or not I get this client or like whether or not I write this document, it's like the how other people do doesn't really matter to me. Like if Tyler, I want Tyler to do well because he's a friend. If there's an asshole real estate agent out there, right? One of my coworkers is kind of a dick, right?
yeah,
It's not that I don't want him to do well or I want to do better than him. It's just that I don't care. It's like if he does well or does poorly, it makes no difference to me. It doesn't matter.
yeah.
So I don't really compare myself to either of them. I look to benefit from Tyler because I have a lot to learn from Tyler, and I look to avoid the other guy because he wastes my time.
I find that the more I can keep the push switch on,
Hmm.
the more I'll end up getting done.
Mm.
And so I try to keep that switch on,
Yeah.
and it's not as though I'm comparing the worth of my work to someone else's. What I'm trying to do is utilize other people's effort as a competition point for the effort I'm putting in,
Right.
and fabricating a constantly slightly higher achievement point to try and hit every day.
Gotcha.
Right. And so I fabricate that reality for me, even if it's not necessarily true, in order to give me that, like, because the dropshipping is very competitive,
Right.
and it's you have to watch out for people stealing your content or your ads or your website. I mean, I got my
Right.
website ripped 2 months ago, and I had to deal with that filing claim and stuff like that, right? So it's very competitive in nature, and like what I've realized through going through it is there's a fair amount of people doing it in the US, but there's also like kids with internet access in like third world countries
Right.
who like their sole goal is to get out of poverty.
Right.
Right. And so it's like
You
they're
gotta
going to be
keep that kid in poverty.
no,
Beat
that's
the
not
shit
my
out of-
goal. That's not no. But what I'm saying is like they're doing so much more with so much less.
Right.
So it's like they got like motivation and spirit to get out of here. I want to embody that motivation. And so how can I do that effectively? And I found that to embody the motivation that they have within me, it's effective for me to constantly put like something just out of reach, which I guess makes it sound like a pull, but I push to it. I push to it.
Yeah.
You know.
It's not gravitating. It's not pulling you toward you. You're pushing to try to get to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're reaching, not being pulled. Right. It sounds like we use push in the same settings, but just in different ways. Like
Yeah, which is interesting.
The actual methodology in which we operationalize it is differently, but we choose to activate it at the same time.
Yeah.
It's like it's 3 a.m. I'm tired. I want to go to sleep, but the work needs doing. I choose push, and then we use push in different ways, which is interesting. And I'm wondering why it is the way it is, or where it comes from. Like, I'm wondering why. I'm sure there's other people that use push in the same way, but even different methods too. And I'm wondering how we come to form those preferences for push.
I'm not sure. I know you listen to the IQ Intellect podcast.
Yeah.
I'd be really interested to see, not related to IQ, but related to brain chemistry and like dominant parts of the brain, potentially how motivation is impacted by what parts of the brain are most utilized in a problem solving.
Right.
Like, different people might have different parts of whatever their brain that are more active in problem solving scenarios. And does that link to how they conquer problems? Like, that'd be a really interesting study.
Yeah.
It'd
It's
be
interesting too, because what works for some people won't work for others. So does the brain light up in a different spot or not at all? Like if I'm in the middle of a 2K and you come up to me and you say, "You got this," some part of my brain lights up. It's not the motivation part. It's the I'm gonna put the handle down part. It's this fucking you don't know what I have. You don't know what I'm going through right now. You don't know how much I have left in the tank. Fuck off. Go away. Now I'm gonna do worse because of you. So like I would always request that people go away while I'm on the erg, because I don't want any external stimulus. I just want to lock in my own head, put my blinders on, and get to work, right? And just suffer in silence on my own.
Well, it was really interesting too. I don't know if you caught in that IQ podcast. It was very briefly mentioned around the middle point, but he talked about the efficiency theory in regards to the brain, and it was like I think it was that people with higher IQs tend to light up their brain less when it comes to solving even more complicated problems.
Right.
Which was a really interesting concept.
It takes less cognitive power to achieve the same thing, right?
Yeah. So it's like lighting. It's not like it's utilizing more of its capability. It's actually
It's only utilizing critical parts.
It's like condensing down its efficiency, which is the theory. It's
right.
All this brain MRI and intellect studying stuff, a lot of it is really taboo, and it's hard to get good data on it by and large, at least from what I gathered from the podcast.
Yeah.
There are people who study it, but a lot of them are ridiculed. But interesting idea.
And so I thought it was interesting too. And what's especially interesting is that if I'm able to complete a task by using less of my brain, or we'll say only the most critical part of the brain, I can then multitask and do something else and light up that part of the brain and do the same thing at the same time and not get flustered, right?
Yeah.
Because I think that your adrenaline spikes and your heart rate increases if your brain is lighting up in too many areas and not able to handle everything, right? So like your adrenaline doesn't spike when you chew bubble gum and pick up a pen, right? But your adrenaline might spike if you're in a Formula 1 race. You have to change your diff bias as you go into the third corner, but not as much as on the previous lap, because now you're overtaking someone else and you're on new tires, but they're scrubbed, so it's not the same. Like when you add all that up, right?
Yeah.
Then your heart rate increases. So it's interesting amongst Formula 1 drivers to see who gets flustered and lets it impact them, who gets flustered and doesn't let it impact them, and then who doesn't get flustered at all and why.
Yeah.
So like Lance Stroll doesn't get flustered because he'll just put it in the wall. Oscar Piastri doesn't get flustered because he doesn't have to use as much brain as Lando Norris to get the same shit done. And so therefore he doesn't get as flustered, or at least he doesn't show it, right?
Yeah.
Which is interesting. But the brain thing is interesting too. I was talking to Grace about this in the car on the way back from Orlando yesterday, and she was like, "Oh, well, the IQ tests aren't like, super accurate because they're socially biased. Like you can't give it's not a standardized test because the test that you give to Americans won't translate the same way as if you put it in Finland or that same test in Japan or something like that because it's whatever." And I was like, "What's interesting about the United States though is that as an American, everyone speaks the same language and lives in the same generalized culture, but you have a very diverse group of people living in one place, right?
Yeah.
So if you take a Russian only where they don't have many people other than Russians IQ test and then drop it in Costa Rica, they're probably not going to get a lot of this stuff because it's from Russia. But also a lot of the stuff on there is like pattern recognition and colors and numbers.
That's what
which is
really
universal.
interests me.
Right.
It's like that light thing where they have 3 lights light up and click the one that's farthest away from the other 2. Like that being correlated to G factor, which is strongly correlated to IQ, is
Right.
really, really interesting because that's just like pattern recognition
Yeah.
and like awareness and computing power.
Right.
Like that's where
Right.
it comes down to. And that was really interesting to me because I was thinking back and like one of the things he said in the podcast was like spelling is very closely correlated to IQ. And I was
Dude,
like,
Justin's brain dead.
I know, I'm
Fuck,
brain dead.
You spell fine.
I spell okay, but like I have to look up basic words sometimes just because like I
Which
didn't
words?
read much. Like I always get the fucking IE shit mixed up in words.
I still
stuff
can't
like
spell
that.
restaurant. I still can't spell.
Yeah, it was a while. It took me a while to get that one. I always like double back on like any even simple words with like IE, like brief. Like I know how to spell it and I'll write it right every time, but I always doubt myself.
Captain is difficult for me.
Yeah, that's my
Soldier is difficult for me. The O and the I. But
yeah.
the
It's just like weird. Like it's interesting because I was thinking about those and I was like, they're probably, and also this is broadly speaking about statistics, right? Part of the thing that he says on the podcast is like the individual analysis is really, really valuable because we're talking in broad strokes here and it can be true for, different groups.
right.
But to look at the individual is likely where we'll find the core differences of why these things exist.
Right.
And so like looking at those things is just interesting. Like I was listening to podcasts and I was like, I'd be really interested to take like a very base level pattern and light recognition IQ test. Like nothing to do with like math or spelling, right? I think I could do fine, on either one. But I'd be just interested like what is like down to the base level where you don't need like any school education to get through it. What's that test look like and how do I do on it? Like I would just be curious. Like I think it would be fun.
It would be cool to take like an uncontacted tribe member and then a kid from Kentucky who didn't make it past first grade and then like a Harvard graduate.
Yeah.
And then see what happens. Because they could all theoretically they could all have the same score, which is super interesting.
Yeah.
But what I thought it was interesting too, because pattern recognition ultimately, is a really great indicator for intelligence because it's like if you can recognize patterns and then you go to solve an issue, like say there's a problem, right? And you can establish a pattern surrounding the problem, you can kind of figure out what puzzle piece fits. And it doesn't matter if it's supply chain issues at work, if it's a website issue with drop shipping, if it's a social intellect problem, sales, right?
Yeah.
Or like a math problem, anything. It's just if you can recognize a larger pattern, then you can accurately guess what puzzle piece would complete it, right? And then that makes someone intelligent in like kind of any field, which I thought
Very
was interesting. Yeah,
Divergence, but interesting.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's push.
That is push.
Okay.
Yeah.
Segment 3. Segment 3 is on how we toggle between push and pull motivation. So now that we've thoroughly discussed the difference between the two, let's break down when to use each and which we prefer. I think from the push section, I've made myself pretty clear on what position I have and that my preference is push on the whole, but I believe pull has its place as well. Pull helps me get a task started, and push holds me to it until it's done. For example, I'll utilize pull motivation by drinking a Celsius and watching some Sam Sulek before going to the gym and get myself amped up to get in the building. And once I'm in the building, push motivation holds me to keep myself there until my workout is completed in full. Which do you find yourself turning to most often, and what's your favorite way to use it?
I think I most often find myself in a push state. That's usually that switch I'm trying to click on, get myself going,
Right.
get myself moving in a direction.
Do you think that's indicative of your static state being not wanting to work?
Um, I think, well, potentially, but not directly.
Mhm.
I think my static state is in a place of liking to work, but not doing what's unpleasant yet critical. So I like to
Working on
work,
fun stuff.
but I like to work on the things that have more fun attached to them or more enjoyment,
Right.
right? And I'll neglect the things that are I know I should be doing, but are critical.
Right.
So it's like I in no case do I like just sitting around and doing nothing.
Yep.
But I'll find that I distract myself with smaller end things rather than bigger goals if I don't kind of push myself to
Mhm.
I'll distract myself with smaller fun things rather than like mission critical, this is going to be better for my long term,
Right.
right? And so I try to keep myself in a push state,
Right.
you know what I mean? Um and so
It's kind of like you don't want to be hungry, but you also don't want to shove your face with vegetables. You want to eat fast food. I don't want to be hungry, but I don't want to eat healthy because it's kind of gross. And it's interesting because some people, your static state is, for lack of a better term, this isn't a real judgment or analysis.
that's
It's like
cool.
eating fast food, right? It's like,
Yeah.
I don't want to do the stuff that's actually good for me because fuck that. And I don't want to do nothing at all because I don't want to be hungry. But there are some people who their static state is being hungry. It is doing nothing.
Yeah.
Their preferred state is sitting down and watching TV for an entire day with
Yeah.
blinds closed, doing nothing. That's their static state. So what's interesting is they have to use push to get out of that state at all, just to the eating fast food stage.
Yeah.
And then they have to use even more push to get to eating vegetables. But for you, if you start to lean toward um, being hungry, you start to level back out again.
Yeah.
You self level back out. And then you have to use push to point from that point further because you do prefer to work. It's just you have to direct yourself to work on something.
Yeah, I use push as a redirect for the work that I should be doing.
Right. Right.
Um
So it's like you're doing something and then push pushes you in the right direction to do it properly.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And it goes back to the push is the more mission critical box work versus pull is the more mission potential box work.
Mhm.
But to get to I'll find myself swimming in the mission potential box
Mhm.
for far too long if I don't force myself into the mission critical box.
Right.
And I think it comes from like almost a synonym to analysis paralysis.
I was about to say that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like very similar to that where I really do love analysis and I love
Yeah.
engineering and I love my spreadsheets. But at the end of the day, my spreadsheets aren't going to make the ads.
Yep.
Right. But what I've found is that what I'm trying to find a balance in is how can I make the spreadsheets to inform me enough about the ads, but not get stuck in making the spreadsheets and never making the ads.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's kind of that balance I find. I haven't found a way to measure
Mhm.
each and decide an optimal, like I haven't A/B tested my life to figure out which one's optimal,
Right.
right? But what I have found is that if I push myself to start working, I'll eventually get a pull perspective where I understand what I need. And for problems I haven't solved before, I'll kind of juggle between the analysis side and the doing side.
Mm.
And through that process and through that like kind of learning through error, I'll figure out a system that does work that incorporates both effectively. And so it's kind of a trial and error thing for me. Like, for example, the first time I made ads, like I kind of just threw stuff together and then I like sort of put some of it on a sheet and then I like half analyzed it and I didn't really have a good system. And then like now I've made over 50 ads, like I kind of have more or less a system,
Right.
but now I'm looking back and I'm going, okay, I've pushed through a lot of this stuff and I've used some pull,
Mhm.
but let me step back and look at the broader pull picture because what I seem to be doing is working to an extent, but not the extent that I need it to be working to. And so it's like, okay, how can I do the broader strokes and then go back to the drawing board and reiterate on my processes that I've developed thus
Right.
far,
Right.
right? And so,
So it's a blend of both, kind of depending on the scenario.
yeah, I would say for for things I don't know how to tackle at all,
Push.
I need to get myself into a push state.
Right.
For things that I have tackled many times over, I have a balance developed between push and pull, and I give myself the opportunity to bring a pull in order to help assess, iterate, and improve my push-pull balance that I've established.
Right.
So that's kind of like how I use it. I use the pull as like my vision board,
Right.
and then I only bring the vision board in once I feel as though I've gotten to like a steady spot and I don't see much change, and then I have
Right.
to reassess to the vision board.
Right. So, okay, so you use that as like a large scale redirect.
Yeah, the pull is much
Yeah.
more of a large scale redirect for me.
Got it.
Versus the push is like the initial.
Yeah. That's kind of how I do it too. It's similar.
That's kind of why I mentioned the timeline thing. Is because
Right.
I think we have very similar approaches.
I think that the key difference is that I don't start with push. I use
Yeah.
pull as the vision board, and then I use pull if I've been pushing for a while and I need like a heading check, right? Like pull is my compass, but push are the sales, right? It's like how I'm actually getting there.
Yeah.
The difference is I start with pull. I amp myself up and I get so excited about something that I start. And then that wears off pretty quickly because pull for me is like a quick hit of adrenaline where it's just enough to get initiated. And then I have to do the drudgery of pushing through it. So like,
Yeah.
dude, I'm so excited to, I don't know, supercharge the Camaro, right?
Sure.
It's going to be awesome. Can't wait. It's going to be so powerful. I'm going to love it. It's going to be awesome. I bought the supercharger online. Woo, awesome. I've got all the parts figured out. Awesome. I'm going to go to Sanders. Dude, I'm stoked. Sanders is going to be excited because we're going to fucking like rip ass in this car. It's going to be great. And then I get there and I'm like, oh, this sucks.
Yeah.
All of this is going to suck. The next 3 days, because it's not going to be a day, it's going to be 3 days. It always lasts longer than you think. It's going to suck. I'm going to be sunburned. I'm going to be sweaty. I'm going to be hungry. I'm going to have a migraine most of the time. And I'm going to fucking hate it. Right. And at that point, the pull goes away. The vision is gone. I don't like I have totally let go of the ethereal realm of the goal. And I'm now solely locked into what is the next bolt that I have to pull to get to the end.
Yeah.
Right.
For me, it would be like my car is slow. I don't know what to do about it. This sucks. I hate that it's slow. And then I'd do like broad like research everywhere. And then I'd be like, okay, I've compiled a bunch of information. What's the big picture here? What do I want out of it?
Right.
And then I'll reassess and do a bunch of push, reassess, push, and then decide on my decision, and then order the parts and start doing it.
Interesting.
Right.
My the vision per se, the pull usually comes to me naturally. Or if I do have to think about it, it's like a fun puzzle that I put together, right? So like when deciding whether or not to do the treasure hunt, it was like it wasn't like like fuck, I hate my life and I want to do something more interesting or anything like that. It was more of like oh, this is really cool, dude. I wonder if I could figure this out. And then I was like, well, he designed it so that anyone can figure it out. So like maybe I should give it a go. And then it was like, I like the Netflix series and he was in the Netflix series, so maybe I'll like his book. And then it was like, the real estate stuff is going to be there my entire life. The treasure might be found in 2 weeks. So like, let's just give it a go. Like the pull for me is more like a dance. It's more like flirting to try to figure out what it is I want to do because I know that that's not the stressful part. The stressful part is actually doing it. Right. So like, I almost enjoy the pull and figuring out the pull. It's like brainstorming. Right. I love the brainstorming period.
I do too. That's kind of what the pull is for me too. What I find is that I'll stay in the pull too long if I don't force myself into a push.
Interesting. I find that the pull gets so strong that I have to start pushing. I find that the pull is so interesting I have to get started. And then from then I'm so far deep into it, then it's push. Right?
Yeah.
So like right now with the treasure hunt, it's getting to the point where it's like, okay, well, I've done all the easy stuff. I've watched the Netflix series. I've read his book. I've listened to the song. I am in the Discord and the Reddit. I've taken my notes, right? So like the easy stuff is gone. The pull is done, right? So now it's the push. Disregarding the real estate and other stuff that I have going on, because that will always take priority over the treasure hunt stuff. Now when I have like a free hour to work on treasure hunting, it's like, well, now what? And it's like, well, I could go read Reddit and try to figure out what other people are looking at. But I mean, you're not going to find any answers in Reddit. You're just going to find like indicators, right? And then it's like, well, I can go back and look at the stuff that I've already read, but I've already read that. Well, okay, this is going to take some like actual new thought, right? So I'm going to have to sit here and think about it. And like, that doesn't sound super exciting at this moment in time because there's other more exciting things happening. So now it's becoming a push. I was pulled so hard in the early stages that I'm now too committed to bail. So now I have to push because I have no option other than to push because the pull isn't working. I'm not really super excited about it right now. Treasure's exciting, but in this exact moment, it's like, well, I'm stuck on this puzzle. I don't have an answer and I don't know what to do next. So it's kind of like I have to push.
Yeah, yeah. What a balance that I am trying to find though actively is I'm trying to find that push pull balance because I was going back through, for example, some of my research stuff,
Right.
and I was like, man, and I was just
Research on dropshipping?
yeah, and like my product and the market and desires and benefits and features, just
Yeah.
like reading through stuff that I had written.
Mhm.
Like this, I have a 45-page document
Yeah.
full of shit that I've researched and written.
Yeah.
Plus an Excel spreadsheet where I've organized it and like formatted it and such and linked it to another sheet. Like I have all these tools
Right.
that I've spent time pushing through and developing.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, I've utilized push to get all this shit. And I was like, let me just take a day and like really look through this stuff and really like read it attentively. I've pushed through a lot of the shit. Have I absorbed much of it?
Right.
I think I've absorbed some of it because I've utilized some of it. I can see concretely evidence of me utilizing it, but have I utilized it in a broader, more effective sense?
Right.
And so that's when I found the pull was really effective because I was like, man, there is so much shit that literally I wrote that I have completely neglected, like
Right.
ad ideas or different market ideas or strategy ideas or notes that I wrote to myself 4 months ago in a comments tab
Right.
that I just never read again.
Right.
And I'm like, oh shit, like these are pretty cool ideas.
Right.
I freaking made these, I'm just ignoring them.
Well, it
right?
wasn't applicable at the time, so you walk past, and now you can use.
Now I'm using the pull in order to kind of give myself that broader picture. I'm still
Right.
trying to find like an ideal balance of like how long do you push, or at least for me, how long do I push before I get before I pull myself into a pull state,
Right. Right.
right? But it's like an interesting dance and balance for me. I
Yeah.
think at the end of the day, it'll probably just take a long time to figure out.
Yeah, and I don't think there's a it's situational, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not always because sometimes, I'll be grinding on a project for a significant period of time and it's like, okay, well, I've been doing this for 10 hours and I could probably go another 5, but is it going to be useful? And it's like, well, I don't know. Like I can do it, I'm capable of it.
Yeah.
On another day, I might have gotten tired at 8 hours, but now I'm at 10 and I have another 5 in me. I know that, but should I use that 5? Or should I regroup and then reanalyze what I've done and then
Yeah.
adjust the direction that I'm going, right? It's not quite the push or pivot that Alex Ramosi is talking about, but it's kind of like, you know, should I take a step back and look at the bigger picture? Like, have I done enough artwork on this like one tiny little corner to take a step back and look at the whole piece and then go somewhere else? Or take a step back, look at the whole piece, and then go back to that same area and touch it up again? Or do I just keep working this tiny little segment?
Yeah.
And that's a difficult thing to pinpoint. I don't think I have it pinpointed for myself either, really. I think usually the state that I use is pull to brainstorm, get an idea, get passionate about something, start it, run off the fumes of that passion until it runs out, and then push until I get bored or sick of it, or like I feel like I've done a significant portion and I should, kind of get a heading check of like, is this actually going in the right direction? And then I step back and I do a pull. So like for real estate, it was, I want to be a real estate agent. And it's like, okay, cool. Well, you start by taking the course. Pulled my way through the first like maybe 8 pages of the course. And then I was like, I have another 3 months of this and this is going to suck. And so then it was just push until I was done with the course. And then once I finished the course, I was like, okay, this is the checkpoint that I've been waiting for. Now I can take a step back and pull, right? And so then the next pull is find a brokerage. And, that quickly got derailed with like finding a lead and then a client, and the apartment checklist. So, and that was forced by circumstance because I didn't have the money for realtor dues. But that was a good example of like push until the checkpoint and then take a look back and then pull in whatever direction you want to go.
Yeah. Yeah. Some a tidbit that I want to drop in here, um, is kind of related to push and pull, but it's also tied to motivation. And I wanted to do it as like a little footnote.
Yeah.
Is sometimes when I'm going through this like push pull process, like inherently when you're pushing and pulling through business and going through the challenges, you have like thoughts in your head of like, oh man, like, is this gonna work? Like, am I on the right track? Is this a good path for me? Blah, 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 blah. And kind of what I try to do to recenter myself is I go, okay, if I'm looking back on this exact moment 10 years from now,
Right.
is the time frame that I'm trying to figure this out and work in, am I going to think 10 years from now that was worth doing or not?
Right.
And by and large, when I think about like 10 years from now, me, I think I would probably look back on this 4, 6, 8 month span of time and go, even if that totally failed, it would be totally worth it to go through the process.
Right.
And so that's kind of what keeps me going,
Right.
is like that longer outlook, that
Yeah.
whole style perspective.
What's
You know,
interesting about that is it's like, how long of a period of time would then be considered a waste? Like, if you did this for 5 years and it didn't
I
work
think
out,
about that a lot.
you know what I think the determining factor is?
Yeah.
How old are you when you're looking back, and what years did you do it for?
Yeah.
Because if you wasted at ages 17 to 18, when you're 50, you're not going to care. If you wasted 5 years from the age 20 to 25, you're not going to care. But if you wasted years 35 to 40, it's like, okay, well, I would want to be retiring pretty soon, and I just wasted 5 years.
Mm,
Now what? Right? So I think it's more of a factor of how much time do you have left. And it's always easier looking from the left side than the right. So
yeah.
it's like right now at 24, I'm like, if I waste the next 5 years on real estate and then I decide it's not for me and I would rather go into like deep sea oil rig drilling, then so be it. I'll be 30, I'll be 29 and I can do it then, right? But when I'm 30, looking back, I'm like, fuck, bro, dude,
Yeah.
I'm 30. Like that was a big chunk of time I wasted.
Right, because the life you had ahead of time you wasted prior to the point you're at is a larger percentage of the life you have ahead. Like if you wasted 5 years in the past and you got 20 years left, you've wasted essentially 25% of the time that you
Remaining.
remaining,
Right.
right? But if you're 20
It's a good way of putting
and you're looking at 50 years ahead
it. Mhm.
and you wasted 5 years prior,
10%.
that's 10%.
Who cares?
Right.
Well, think
So,
about where you were 5 years ago today.
yeah, right.
We were 19,
Yeah.
right? So we were graduating high school
Yeah,
5 years ago.
this is wild. Yeah,
So, and that's, 20% of our life, right?
yeah.
But 5 years from now, we'll be 29, and 5 years will be, what, 15% of our life? Something like that? Let
Um,
me do the math.
5 of 30, 5
29,
of 29.
39 is 5. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be like 17% or something.
17.2. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, sorry, I accidentally opened my phone. So, yeah, it's like you're going from 20% of your life to 17. And it's like, that's a sizable difference, right?
Mm.
Like if I took 3% of the days off your entire life, you're like, what the fuck? That's
Yeah.
a lot of days, right?
But it's also a larger. Those 5 years in the past are a larger percentage of the future life you have.
Right.
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 So
It's putting into perspective as in, well, I only have 20 years left and I just wasted 5. So if I were to do that again, I would be wasting a quarter of the time that I have left, which is
Yeah.
a significant chunk, right?
right.
All assuming that you die of old age at 80 and not of a car accident tomorrow. But I see what you're saying. For in that moment, the perspective that you have is assuming you're
Yeah.
going to live, right?
Yep.
But yeah, that's an interesting thought. And I still think that it's more worthwhile to waste. I mean, I could have wasted every living day up until now. And like if tomorrow I'm like, I've got it. I'm going to sell fish.
Yeah.
And I decide from then on that every day of my life up until now has been wasted because I'm passionate about selling aquarium fish,
Yeah.
right? Then it's still worth having these thoughts and conversations because we're putting it into perspective while other people aren't even considering that.
Mhm.
Like I think that and it's not to compare to other people, like I said earlier. I try not to compare to other people, but more like the baseline. Like the expectation of a person who's 24 years old is find the job that you want and get good at it and then stick with it.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like most people right now are thinking, okay, well, I'm going to pick a career field and then I'm going to continue in this for 10 years and then I'll become specialized in it. And then maybe I'll pivot to something else that's adjacent or I'll even niche down further. Right. But like right now I'm trying to find what I want to do. And by just simply having the thought of like, is what I'm doing right now going to be wasted 5 years from now? Am I going to look back and see it as a waste or not?
Yeah.
Makes what we're doing right now more valuable than if we weren't.
Yes. Yeah.
It's my
Agree.
perspective.
You have anything to add for this last section?
No, I didn't.
I have one thing at the end, but I wanted to wait.
I haven't read off a single bullet point, but I already hit every topic because I just kind of knew it. So yeah, what
There
you
you
got?
go. So I want to try and introduce this this time around to see if you thought it was fun or interesting.
Okay.
Just this is kind of like goes along with the dial in perspective of things,
Okay.
where for this topic versus pull,
Mhm.
I wanted to bring an example based recap along with kind of your dial in quote style recap to kind of tie the two together and end the podcast with some examples as well as a reference quote
Got
into things, so that like the ending can kind of be like a applicable plus quote recap. I thought that would be kind of interesting and nice.
Yeah, I like that. It's funny you mentioned that because I also added a bonus in at the end,
Hmm.
which was I gave all our potential podcast topics to ChatGPT and told it to randomly pick 3 for us to pick a podcast topic for next week at the end of this one. We don't have to keep it in the recording if we don't want to, but just so that instead of picking a topic on Thursday and then having to write everything Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I can kind of space it out.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
okay,
There
do
we
your
go.
quote, do the dial in, and then we'll pick the topic after.
So the little kind of game recap that I have is I have 5, 6 things that could be categorized as either a push or a pull box.
Okay.
And so I'll just read off the 6.
Alright.
I think they'll be relatively easy, and then we can kind of just go through push or pull. But immediate impending deadline that you have to address.
Are you asking me?
Yeah, it would be categorized as something that's a
Push.
more push or pull box.
I would say push.
Yeah, I would say push. Finding a job with limited time available.
What is limited time?
Like you have a week to find a job or you're not going to be able to pay rent.
Probably push.
Probably push. Yeah.
High stakes.
Creating a long-term vision board about what you want to achieve over the next 5 years.
Probably pull. I'm noticing that the ones with deadlines are push. None of the ones without deadlines are likely pull.
Yeah, yeah.
There's still 3 more. So
And that could be biased in how I wrote it too, because in push I put deadline as like one of my
yeah, sure. But no, but it's an
checkpoints.
interesting thought because it's saying, like, what's really interesting about this is that I push when there is no deadline. It's harder. It's harder for me to complete a task if there is no deadline. So that's when I have to utilize push. Like I said with the car thing, it's like with rowing, I would focus on the stroke that I'm doing right now, and I wouldn't worry about where I am in the piece or how much longer I have in practice. It's just what is this stroke. And with cars, it's like what is the next bolt. It's not where I am because I don't know how long it's going to take. I'm just trying to focus on this one thing. But it's
Yeah.
interesting because I can't think of a scenario where there's a deadline involved and I choose pull. Like a near
I
death.
think you can condense down pull into a perspective, but it's about how much time you spend on each. Because you can spend some time, you can either start with push, right? And kind of get going and then get into a pull perspective where you reassess and kind of get a broader plan together. Or you can start with pull and how is the best way to approach this and then push through it, right?
Yeah, the issue is with the deadline. I don't know if I have the time to waste on pull.
Right. It's a balance, right?
Right.
So
Well, so for the job, it's like you have 1 week to find a job, and it's like, hey man, I have rent to pay. I don't care what the job is, right?
right.
I'll blow guys in their cars. It doesn't matter.
But if you have a month, maybe
Right.
you have some
Then it's
pull
like-
perspective.
right. Then it's like maybe where do I go? Right.
Right. But then it also ties back into something that I think we touched briefly on in other podcasts, which is like how efficient can you be with your time and how you work. And so it's like maybe down the line, once we've gone through business more and done more things, we'll be more efficient with our time or have more efficient different strategies that we don't even know about now.
Right.
And we can figure out how to utilize pull even in a week time frame. Right.
Right. Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting. Like this could change over time, but I just kind of wanted to give a couple examples to
Right,
kind of
right,
just
right.
recap some broad strokes. But
Yeah.
it's interesting because there's a lot of it's a multivariable equation and all the variables are kind of changing intermingly.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a differential equation.
Yeah, exactly. Which we both did great in.
I did okay in DFEQ. I did not do okay in PDE.
Yeah, I didn't do great in PDE. I did well in DFEQ though. That's true. Addressing an immediate financial crisis.
Probably push.
Probably push. A plan for personal growth and reinvention.
Pull.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, those I had 5, not 6. But
Okay.
that's I kind of wanted to go through those different things.
I wonder if I can quickly think of an interesting one with a deadline that would be pull. Because what if there's a decision that you have to make right now but has long-lasting impact? So you only have 24 hours to figure it out. I mean, the dropshipping site was one, right? Because you only have like 24 or 48 hours to accept that, right?
Yeah.
Buying the dropshipping site. So it's
Yeah.
like, okay, if I say no, then I have to build my own site from the ground up in a product or whatever. I guess you've already done that, but like you have one that you don't know if it works, right?
Right.
Or I can purchase this, which is a major expense right now, and dedicate the next like 5 months of my life to it to making it work. And I
Yeah.
only have 24 hours to decide.
Because then and then in that time frame, we may have different approaches to do in those 24 hours.
Right.
Like I might start with just like push through on a bunch of different facts and like whatever, just scramble and then go back to a pull versus you may start with a pull and then
Yep.
once you figure out a pull, push through it and then a
Yeah.
pull and then push through it.
Yeah.
Right. So it's kind of different strategies in the midst, but it's also dependent on like how you're framing the
Right.
problem in the situation.
I would probably pull that whole 24 hours and then only push if I like didn't have the finances ready to go. Like I would push to be like, fuck, I got to make $500, right?
Yeah.
But what's interesting about that is then I find myself leaning toward pull for long lasting ramifications, like major important decisions that last a long time. As
Yeah.
far as the job example goes, jobs are important, but if I only have a week to figure out a job, I can kind of leave a job whenever. Like
Yeah,
I can float around, right? But if it's like if your girlfriend comes home and she's like, I'm sick of how much you're working, I want, another 2 date nights a week, or I'm leaving, you have tonight to figure it out. It's like, well, okay, this could be a long lasting ramification. So then I have to
Yeah.
figure out what direction am I pulled towards in the major scope of things.
Right. Exactly.
And that's another item is that I find that with pull, the direction that I want to go or am meant to go pulls me. But when I'm doing work that needs to be done, I push myself. So I am the one moving in each scenario, but it's either something else pulling me toward where I need to go, or it's me pushing myself where I need to go. But what's interesting is that for pull, I find it's not me convincing myself to do it. It's something else exciting me and pulling me toward it,
Hmm.
which is also an interesting perspective.
This is a fun little game. I like that. I'll try to come up with one for each week.
Sure.
Yeah.
Cool. I'll do my dial-in quote, and then we'll figure out a topic off camera because I forgot about another variable. Okay. So the dial-in quote is one that you actually read earlier today. Can you guess what it is?
Oh.
Can you guess who said it?
Maybe Senna.
No.
Well, it's one that
Fuck
you
the
read.
French?
Oh, or Hermosi.
Yeah.
Did I read the Hermosi quote?
Yeah.
Was it? Crap! I know I read one, but I forgot what I read.
Is it on your page?
No, it came off the top of my head.
I know you know it.
Yeah. I mean, I read it. I should know it, right?
What Hermosi quotes do you know about motivation?
Oh my god, I'm so blanking right now. This is wild.
Bro, IQ test out the window.
Yeah. Fact.
Pattern recognition.
Single digit right now.
Well, you're on the spot
Yeah.
on camera.
I can't push through it.
That's okay. Tap out. All right. Work begins when motivation ends.
Dang it. I did
You
say-
said it earlier today.
did.
And when you said it, I tried not to make a face because I was like, I'm going to ask him later if he'll remember.
Yeah. No, I
Anyways.
didn't have it on my sheet, but yeah, now I remember saying that. That's funny.
Yeah. All right. That's all I got.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining in and listening in. We'll see you next week and have a good one.